Go House to take a passport, and it takes maybe 2 or 3 days. I have my passport there. Not that I have to go to Jogoo Road, apply for a passport, then wait for about maybe another 1 year for that to happen, right? We just need working systems, nothing more. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let us welcome Wakili Wambeti. Please tell us something. Wakili, are you there?
Yes, I am. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much. And allow me to start by introducing myself. I work with the Federation of Women Lawyers as the Executive Director. My name is Annie Reri, and I also join in as a member of the Law Society to just congratulate and to really thank our council under the leadership of our President, Faith Odhiambo, for the great work they're doing. I join in as well with other comrades in our country at this very heavy time. It is heavy. We are tired. We have cried. We don't know what to do. And for us, speaking from where FIDA is, allow me to single out and speak a lot around what's happening with Quarry and what's happening to the women in our country. And for the many years FIDA has been in existence, I have worked at FIDA for most of my life. This has been the story of our days. That you wake up, you go to work, and what you get to listen to most of the time are such gruesome, horrific stories about a society that does not value children, that you find perpetrators and people wanting to rape, and they actually rape children who are even 1 month old. What does that speak about the society? So I'm painting this picture so that we see the trajectory as to how we have ended up even in the mess we are at as a country, where we've lost values. We want to objectify women. We have maimed, hurt, and even killed women and children. And that speaks to how we value ourselves. So looking at what has happened today at Quarry, it's really, really unfortunate. And one of the things we are trying to look at is what contributed to this. And we joined in as FIDA Kenya, being members of the Police Reform Working Group. We have been at the forefront alongside other comrades, speaking particularly to what we are saying today. We must be a country that is governed by transparency and accountability. And what does accountability mean? As we've said, that we must have systems that work. A justice system that I, as a Kenyan, can have faith in, that I don't need to take someone's life. I know that I will go to court, trust that system, and be able to get justice out of it. A system where we feel, particularly for women and children, and allow me to give you the synopsis. As a country, for those who understand, even the justice system is skewed largely to protect perpetrators. We are talking about a country where, even as FIDA, we have submitted severally. We cannot have multi-billion infrastructure, yet we don't have courts that protect children. Can you imagine a child who's 3 years old, who's been defiled, and every other time she has to come to court and face the monster who took away her innocence? And this is just a budgetary question. It's a question of us being very active and calling out, and we have done that. That as we allocate certain amounts that go to structures and buildings that we will never use, can't we just take time to invest in our courts, to protect women, to protect children, to protect any person, even men? We have cases of men who are being violated. And to wake up to news yesterday of bodies being found takes us back to January, when we had cases of femicide, and we came together with the gallant student leaders in our campuses and colleges, where we called out that as Kenyans, young or old, male or female, we cannot walk in our country always looking back, scared and worried that you don't know what will happen next to you next. We must be a country that assures you that you'll be secure, that you'll be protected. And if at all you happen to be in conflict with the law, that there are systems that we trust that will be able to handle that. So it's truly unfortunate. As women, our hearts are cried out. They are cried out. We don't know what to do. We don't know how to walk, where to be safe. We imagine we live in a country that we are treated as badly as being mutilated, as you've heard, that we are being stacked up in sacks. And we are normalizing it, because one of the things we kept on raising, even as women, as women in the country, and those who are working with us, and the men and our brothers and dads, is that we cannot sit and normalize that a child or a baby who is 1 month old was raped, that a grandma who was 99 years old or 86 years old was burnt alive in her house or was raped. What does that speak about us? We refuse to normalize. And when we have a breakdown of values, breakdown of systems, as we have, and I've had several great speakers before me go, that this mess is where we end up with. That we must have institutions that speak and protect the citizen. I've been a student of public policy, and I'm passionate about it. And one of the tenets of public policy is that we must have policies that address issues that are realistic, that have the people at heart. And that's the conversation we are having. So we join in accountability, and accountability to the point of we must demonstrate that indeed as a country, through the people who are in those positions, be it in government, be it in the legislature, that we are walking the talk. If we want to speak about protecting young people, we want to know that a girl who's 19 years old or a young man leaving campus on Thika Road to get to her hostel or in Kisumu does not have to be accosted because we have security breakdown. We've not invested in systems, in security lights, yet we pay taxes. We want to know that a child who's defiled has to go to court only once because we have invested in video evidence, that she does not have to miss school every other time because she has to come to a court where the case keeps on being adjourned. Can you imagine what that child goes through? We must be a country that if I am 96 years old and widowed, I know the society around me is going to protect me. When my time to go will come, I will be treated with dignity. So as I conclude, one of the things, and that's what saddens us the most, is that beyond the senseless abductions that we join in as FIDA Kenya to call out, beyond the senseless killings and extrajudicial killings, misuse of police power and excesses, is that we now have a situation where the dignity and the sanctity of one being called a Kenya has been watered down. Be it because you're poor or your circumstances cannot allow you to seek justice, that you cannot be able to have enough places that you can seek access to justice. FIDA Kenya is a charity organization and has survived like that for the last 40 years without receiving a single cent from the exchequer. And part of why FIDA exists and ends up seeing close to 200 women every day in our offices is because of the same breakdown of systems and services in the country. Most progressive jurisdictions give free legal aid. If I have violated by my partner, doesn't mean enmity. If I need to seek shelter, I have a place where the government has set aside for me to have a temporary home, to get my house in order, to get mental wellness and decide I can part ways with my partner well. Well, when I feel I have a neighbor I have a dispute with, I can go to court and then be able to have justice meted out. So I join in this conversation that part of what we must have is accountability. We must bring back the dignity of being a Kenyan. That even if you're not a billionaire or a millionaire, you can wake up with pride, go to work because the working conditions that you have dignify you, that we are not having people having to walk so many distances to work. And that's what we see in Nairobi every day because they cannot afford fare. Yet we want to call ourselves a progressive society. We cannot. So we join in. We are truly, truly heartbroken. And as FIDA Kenya, who we have been working around issues of femicide since I think we started. And for those of us who've been following us, you've noticed even with the young women, whenever it happened and there were senses and signs of even victim shaming, we've always said, let's not go there. It's not about where she was or what she was doing. No one has a right to take anybody's life. So we must dignify what it means to be a Kenyan. We must call for transparency and accountability. And we speak of a society electing leaders who mirror them. So we must walk the talk. And I like what has been said. We must join in registering ourselves, going out for elections, including party primaries. And allow me to single this because I've also worked on elections. One of the things we miss out on is when the time comes, we wait for the last day of the election, the main election day. But guess what? There's a lot that goes on even during party primaries, and we don't need to join parties that exist. People are free to join parties, progressive, idealistic parties, because parties will still be the ones that deliver people. So let's spread the message. Let's not relent. I know probably a section of our youth might feel they do not want to vote again. We must fight against voter apathy. And as has been stated, couple civic education with political education. And we know circumstances, particularly of inadequacy, lack of access to resources, is what clouds political education, hence the handout syndrome we have in our country. But we must walk the talk if we are to really break this curse in our country, that I can go and we can have people vying for office. We have seen it demonstrated without having to bribe or have handouts. But when they get into office, we must have a matrix that we hold them to account. And we've done that. It is doable. We do that with our women leaders, those where we can. We work with them, we agree on what they're going to do, and we've seen a level of success with that level of accountability. So I'm really, really glad, as heartening and sad as we are looking at circumstances today, that we are in a space where citizens are coming together as we have today to call out and to demand, and let's not relent. Accountability is across society. So whatever leadership spaces, in government, out of government, in our religious spaces, in our civic spaces, in our homes, if we know a neighbor who's mistreating or beating up a wife or a spouse, or even a wife mistreating a husband, we need to call that out, because that is a fabric of our society. So thank you so much for having me. Allow me to end there, and we join in, and again committing that FIDA will work with the families. We have always done that. We'll offer psychosocial support through our various counselors on site. We will walk the justice walk alongside comrades in the sector and make sure none of those deaths will go unaccounted for. Each of those ladies has a story. Each of them have a unique life story. We owe it to them to make sure that we get to the bottom of this road. Thank you very much.
Let me just chip in. Thank you, Anne. And even Horton that spoke with regards to what they saw today and as the bodies were being removed. And I think some of you have seen on different media graphic scenes of what how some of the body parts have been chopped in pieces, and we are demanding action. I think if there is ever a time where we should hear the president talking about an address, it should be exactly now. We demand that the head of state should address his people with regards to what concrete actions are going to be taken to ensure that we have expedited investigations and that we get to the book. And let's see, even I associate myself with the statement that was issued with Amnesty, FIDA, amongst other different organizations, calling for let's have also different parties represented, the different stakeholders, that we can be ascertained that the process is open and transparent. We've been talking about femicide from the previous year and even early this year when the cases became much more. And we cannot continue in this trajectory. We appreciate the statement by the Director of Public Prosecutions, but he had issued a statement before, even with regards to Rex Masai's case, and want to see how far that has gone. Time has been ticking. We are still not satisfied with the statements that were issued by IPOA. We need to see justice being done, and justice delayed is justice denied. And that therefore we must demand that we need to see proactive action to get to the bottom of these killings. Yesterday 9 bodies, today more bodies have been removed from the quarry, and there are demands that also National Construction Authority to close down quarries for some time to allow proper investigations to be done. And we also have a monitoring system. We cannot continue to see more of our sisters and brothers being killed and thrown in different body parts. It's even hard to identify when such a thing and they have been dismantled in bits and pieces. You know, it even kills that essence of humanity, because you don't understand what human being would do this to another human being. And so the nation demands to be addressed with what is happening, what must be done, and with timelines, so that we don't wait for another sensation to sweep this story under the carpet. We need to get answers, and as soon as possible. Thank you. I think Billy or Manuel, you can continue opening. Manuel, you can give someone else, part of those who are still waiting to speak.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. With those submissions, I've listened to the different submissions that have been made by the contributors in this forum. And I think it's very important that we emphasize on what you have just stated, because these bodies are being dumped in institutions that are under the control of government. The quarries are under the National Construction Authority. The forests where these people are found dumped are under the National Forest Service, and you understand other places, including rivers and water bodies. Those places are under respective government entities, and it's important now that the civil society should put these government institutions on the radar as to how individuals are found damned within the spaces where they're supposed to actually take or watch and take responsibilities for. And it's very important that we hold them accountable, because once we voice our views on these spaces where people are damned, it's important that these institutions take responsibility personally and individually for purposes of ensuring that there is accountability and there is also transparency in terms of the investigations that are undergoing. I will allow, we have several speakers in the line. We have experts equally who intend to speak on a number of issues. I'll want to invite Sir John Kenya, if you can hear me. And I appreciate what Wakili Wambeta has indicated from FIDA Kenya, because again, this is a collective responsibility from all the institutions. The ladies who are found there are actually Kenyan citizens. It can be any of us. And it's very important that we actually pay attention to what is happening. At the end of the day, we have a proper constitution that we have to protect. The Constitution of Kenya 2010, which gives privileges, rights, responsibilities to institutions of government. And it's very important that we hold individuals in those offices. If you think you are not going to be accountable, and I speak from the perspective of IPOA, which has been receiving resources of the public in terms of facilitation and allocations from Parliament, but they cannot account as to what investigations, as to how many police officers have been held accountable by using live bullets to shoot Kenyan citizens who are exercising their constitutional rights. We have to hold these institutions, not only the institution as an institution created under statute, but in also the officers given the responsibility to run and manage those institutions. And I think this is a conversation that we'll continue to have. I don't know, Sir John, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Kindly proceed. We can hear you. Kindly proceed.
Okay, thank you so much and good evening. I only have just a few to put across. May the soul of those who have lost their lives rest in peace. I think what we are seeing is very unfortunate. And I think Ruto must come out and explain to us what inspired. It's very painful to watch bodies being retrieved just near a police station. I'm again here to confirm that on Tuesday. Let us turn up, let us show up, and reclaim our country. I think it is for us. There's no one who will come for us. It is us. Let's avoid these politicians. This is our time. Yeah. So thank you so much, and have a good night.
Thank you, Sir John, for those contributions. Howard, are you there? And guys, it's very
Yes.
important to note that we have legal experts within this space. It's important that you raise concerns and questions that these individuals can be able to answer and respond to. We have people from different spaces. We have journalists. We have professionals from different spaces, and it's very important that actually we raise concerns that touch on the professions that I have just mentioned, so that at least we have experts who can be able to address these concerns. Kindly proceed.
Thank you so much, Manwa, and the other co-hosts, and thank you for this space. First is just to send my condolences to the families that have lost loved ones. I've had people, some people, I've read people posting on social media how perhaps the gender of the deceased is only ladies, as though it is right for it to be only ladies. Others have commented that maybe it's not out of the action of the police from the recent demonstrations and the abductions, as though abducting is right, and as though, dying is okay as long as it's not done by the police. Either way, I think the police and government have got a big role to play, whichever way, whether they are the ones who kill them or not. If they are not the ones who kill them, they still have a responsibility to unravel and get people to know how these people came to die, how they came to be gathered in one place in a very characteristic way that looks more or less as though the person who committed the crimes is one and the same person. My background is in construction, and I wanted to shed a little bit of light on a point that the president raised, and I think Wakili Manwa also mentioned something on it. The quarries. Quarries, normally there is a procedure for anyone to open up a quarry, especially if they're using it for construction. And the parties involved is not just NCA. NEMA also has got a key role in approval of any usage of a quarry, and is still a government agency of regulatory nature. And when the quarry, when a quarry has stopped being used, there is a clear procedure of decommissioning it. I'm just wondering how we remain with a quarry that is in disuse. It has never been decommissioned, and part of the things, the safety measures that are taken before you decommission a quarry is to make it safe for any human beings that are living close. For instance, if it has sharp edges, let's say like cliffs, you have to ensure that you cut them down so that there are slopes that someone can go down safely and get out safely. If they have any chances of ponding, you have to ensure that you backfill so that you do not have that kind of ponding. In case you want to convert it, say, in a water pan so that it can be a source of water or a water reservoir, then there is a way you are supposed to fence it off so that first you protect the source of water from being contaminated by people coming around, and at the same time also protect it from the dangers of any people who are living in the vicinity, perhaps falling in by accident or by any other reason, like the reasons that we are seeing where people are killing others and dumping them there. Either way, there has to be an agency somewhere that has either slept on the job or has acted negligently for us to be in the situation that we are in. Quickly, I'll try to make a comment on the situation as it has been going on in the country and where we are. I know right now, because of the pressure, several things have happened. The president has done a huge step in dissolving his cabinet. But from where I sit, the biggest step is yet to be taken, because the biggest win is not the dissolution of the cabinet. The biggest win is in how to reconstitute the cabinet. when I listen to politicians, a lot of times I feel like most of them are still not getting the point. They don't seem to separate why people are protesting and why people are having unrest. Some of them are looking for someone to blame. Some are looking for a leader, perhaps so that they can target them. Some of them are looking for a leader, maybe so that they can compromise them. But they don't seem to get the real point and the real uh, place that pinches Kenyans. If anyone was listening, by now they should have known that the deepest call for Kenyans is just call for accountability. Do what you promised. President William Ruto, from where I sit, I strongly believe that he's someone who was elected by popular vote because he convinced people and made people to appreciate and believe in his dream. He was very convincing. He made big promises, promises that that there will be no extrajudicial killings when he becomes president, promises that he will turn around the economy from the bottom. He made people believe that when he becomes president, those who are weak, those who are struggling, the masses, the unskilled, the semi-skilled, will get opportunities to be productive, contribute to the economy, and perhaps improve the revenue collection for the economy and make a country better. But when he became president and some of the proposals that were being made, they turned out to look like they were harsh. In 2023, people sat back and said, okay, let's try it as long as it is going to help us to move to the right direction. Mostly because I believe that a leader, someone who is up there, they have access to information, they have access to intel that most of us might not be having. So many times we have to give a benefit of doubt to the leader and the person who is high up there. But when it turns out that our worries become confirmed that, that was a bad decision after being patient for 1 year, and then another bad decision again is piled up on it, it gets people worried. If we have to get from where we are, and if we must get a win from the dissolution of the cabinet, there are several things that I think the president must do in walking us to the next cabinet. Number one, if I were to speak to him directly, I don't have that chance here, but I will still say it because I'm speaking to Kenyans. He must avoid as much as possible the known groupings, the wash groupings. They are known. Either the intelligence system machinery that is set up by government is able to give him all the full list of names of the wash enterprise, and he must avoid them as much as possible. He must avoid generally recycling the political class, because that's something that is really going to anger Kenyans so much if he has to go that direction. Number three, he must avoid these Azimio and ODM scavengers, because there are several of them that I can see around who are already milling around and trying to get an opportunity, perhaps in the name of government of national unity, dialogue, and blah, blah. That will be a mistake, because if he goes that direction, it's going to make things messier, and he might create a lot more anger from the public, and I don't know how it will turn out. Number four or number five, one of the biggest problems we faced, when the president was campaigning, he was a totally different person. He has to bring us that William Ruto that was there during the campaigns, that William Ruto that was very promising, and the William Ruto that was carrying the aspirations of Kenyans while he was looking for the votes. He was able to identify between meritocracy and sycophancy. When he was picking his campaign machinery, uh, by a big extent, he picked people who were competent, some of them who were even his known enemies, but because they had the skill sets and the competencies, he was able to pick them. He gave us a picture that this can be a president who will pick the right people for the job and get the job done. When he won the elections, things changed because he went back for the the non-wash gangs, and the method approach that was used to select his cabinet from the word go, I think from where I sit and from the things I've heard, was faulty. And I always say that every human being, however good they are, including all of us on this forum, you have potential to be devils or potential to be angels. The difference, what makes the difference between whether you'll be a devil or an angel, is the method that puts you in the place that you find yourself in. So even if you got an angel being employed as a cabinet secretary, but the angel has to part with 100 million or 200 million, there is always the risk that once that angel becomes that cabinet secretary, they can easily become a devil because of the method or the approach that was used to get them into that position. And that was one of the tragedies that must have been experienced, because there was a lot of stories of hundreds of millions, exchanged with through gunny bags and what have you at that time. Whether it is believable, whether it's true or not, I think His Excellency the President must be knowing the truth behind that. It's another pitfall that he must avoid by all means. He must avoid it like a plague this time round when he's selecting his cabinet, and he must find a way of going out there, whether he's picking people from the civil service or from the private sector. He must pick people that first he's confident and happy about their competencies, but secondly, he needs to pick them purely based on merit, so that he has some degree and a leeway for control, so that he knows the relationship between him and the people that he has chosen as a cabinet is performance and delivery to the Kenyan public, as opposed to trying to pay debts that you have incurred, by collecting money or letting money exchange between people and others. I think that might help him if he follows those 4 or 5, if he watches out for those 4 or 5 pitfalls. Perhaps he might just bring us a cabinet that might make the nation celebrate, and not only celebrate, but begin working on a journey to recovery and to healing of this nation. Because I want to believe everyone who is stepping out there on the streets, everyone who is protesting on social media, everyone who is doing these demos and occupy here, occupy there, occupy this organization, everyone who is doing whatever they're doing, they mean well. They would like to have a better country. All of us would like to build a better Kenya. All of us would like to see a Kenya that is prospering. We would like to see a Kenya that is productive, a Kenyan that is exporting, has value that it can give to other nations, a Kenya that has got a strong and performing currency. If all these things happen, everybody is happy. I want to believe even those who will be in power, they will be happy to have an economy that is growing, an economy that can pay its debt, an economy that is promising to its young people, an economy that is not throwing desperation and lack and scarcity to its people. I think I would bring it to an end there, and just encourage each one of us, whatever you are doing, keep on doing it. Of course, I'm glad to see that we are surrounded by a big cloud of advocates. I say this because let's keep on doing this, remembering that we have a law, because the only thing that puts us together as a country is that piece of statute called a constitution, because it's a contract we have between us that tells us we need to live with each other in this manner. If that constitution was not there, we have no business or anything else that guides why we are sitting together as a country. We must keep on remembering that we have that document to govern us, that document to help us to walk a common journey, to focus on a common destiny as a country, and support each other and encourage each other. For a long time, our country has been run based on fear. The powers of the administrators, of the people who have been leading, they have led through fear. You were just scared. You are threatened of this, threatened of that. You are told, if you comment, there is a time for those of us who are my age, people could not even sit in their house and mention the name of the president. Those years in 80s, in 90s, and then there came to a time when people, at least when President Kibaki came, and there was a bit of opening up the democratic space, but still people kept on pulling each other back with the threats and the fears that you cannot say something against government. Government will bite you. Government will do ABC to you. And our political class seem to be stuck in that past. They think that they cannot be told anything, and if you are told, and if you try to tell them anything, they think they can find 1,001 ways to fix you, to hurt you, to injure you, to do ABCD. But if there are many more voices who are speaking out and coming out and letting this known that this is what we would like to have as a country, this is what perhaps will give us progress and help them maybe to stop just one time and listen and understand what their people are speaking. Because by and large, including those people who are speaking and do not deeply understand why they're going that direction, they're feeling something, and that's something that they're feeling it means well for the country. We just want systems that are working. We want people that care. We want leadership that cares where they're taking their nation, so that we move to one common destination that is good for all of us as a country. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Howard, I think you have raised substantive issues. I want to assure you that as the Law Society, will ensure that we follow up on the questions you have raised on the National Environmental Management Authority, which has the responsibility to manage those spaces where people were found to have been dumped, and we will ensure that we hold them responsible as to how those individuals who are dumped in those places.
NEMA, they actually supposed to issue
Yes.
licenses for decommissioning. I'm wondering why they have not done that, and why they've taken that long, and why we still have an open place that is dangerous to the public. So I appreciate that you can pick it up and follow it up, so that at least we have firm answers from the regulators. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. We will ensure that we initiate that process, including instituting proceedings before the tribunal and even in court. As you are aware, we have the Environment and Land Court within the spaces of the High Court that actually handles environmental issues. And this is one of the areas we want to pursue as a law society, to ensure that they account for those spaces, and including the risks you have indicated. Because if those spaces are a risk to the public, they have a duty to actually secure the places, those places from by ensuring that they are not a risk to the members of the public. I want to allow someone else to speak. Dr. Ben, can you hear me? You have the microphone. Dr. Ben, are you there? You have the microphone. Kindly.
Yes, I'm here. Please confirm you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you. Kindly proceed.
Oh, perfect.
Thank you.
Good evening, guys. My name is Ayo. First of all, my deepest condolences to, all the lives we lost. Everyone that has faced police brutality. I mean, we really sorry for them. And as I begin, I just have a few questions that we've been asking, but we still don't have answers to. Yes, we saw that the president decided to, send all the CSs home. Of course, now they're sacked. And so what does that mean to these CSs in all these various departments? Are they going to be grilled? I mean, most of them were corrupt. Are they going to face the law? Are they going to be taken to book? Because we need answers. What really happened? What work were they doing in their various departments? And all the monies that were lost, all the public funds that were lost, and are we going to recover them? The MPs, I feel now that the CSs are gone, we need to recall our MPs. We need to recall our MPs, because the country has been going through a lot, and most MPs have not been able to even account for the various monies allocated to the various constituencies. And are they dissolving the parliament? And what really is the process of dissolving the parliament? Because as we speak, the country just wants the whole system flushed out. Everybody's on the streets that they're like, Ruto must go. I mean, are we going to get the work done? And what's the process of getting that work done? The Reconstitution...
Sorry, is everyone else able to follow what Dr. is saying? I don't seem to hear him.
We can hear him.
We can hear me. We can hear him. I don't know. I think you need to check on your internet.
Okay, so I can continue.
We can hear him what he said. Yeah,
okay.
Please continue.
On matters IEBC,
Is there anyone
When is
speaking?
it being reconstituted? Because even if we had to go back to the drawing board and go for elections today, we don't have a functional independent electoral system. We don't have it. When is it being reconstituted? Because those are answers we really need as Kenyans. And on matters concerning police brutality, when yesterday or the other day on the Citizen Assembly, you all heard how that poor woman was really, crying about her son. He didn't know where her son was. He's asking questions. And I know many other women out there are asking about their children. Do we have answers to these women? Do we have answers for our parents? Where are our fellow Gen Zs and youths, because they're missing? And we also, the bodies that were recovered on those dump sites, are these the missing people that we've been reporting missing? Are they being abducted then killed? And if they're being abducted then killed, who's handling this mess? Who's gonna answer for all this mess? Because one life lost is too many. And every day the media is reporting the number of people killed. It's not even the accurate number. Is the media gagged? Is the government gagging the media? Because we have a lot of unanswered questions from the media. One media reports this, the other reports that. Then the netizen come to, discover something so different from whatever has been happening. So is the media really independent, or is it gagged? So those are some of the questions. And the abductees, what is the government doing to ensure that the abductees are found? And if they are dead, are they accounted for? Is the government accounting for all these bodies? On matters police brutality, these policemen, this police force, we have them on camera. Why is the president still saying that we're gonna look into that? Yet we have these policemen on camera. We have them shooting innocent lives on the streets. We have them forcing, and beating us up on the streets. There are pictures, there's pictorial evidence, there video evidence, and yet they can't still be brought to book. So those are some of the questions that I'm asking myself as a Kenyan, as a young Kenyan, because on Tuesday we're still hitting the streets. On Tuesday we're still going to the streets, and we have only one message, that Ruto must go, and he has to go, because we can't have a government that is instilling punitive taxes on us. When we make noise, we still get killed. And these policemen, I've been documenting. I've been documenting a documentary since the protest began, and I've been releasing snippets. But thing is, some policemen are literally crying and saying, yo, si hatutaki kuwa kwa hizi streets, but tumeambiwa tukuje. I have video evidence. I interviewed one of them, and they said, me by them hatutaki kuwa kwa hizi streets, but wadosi wametukanyagia tukuje kwa hizi streets. Na nikamuuliza, are you guys allowed to shoot live bullets on us? Are you guys allowed to lobby live bullets on us? Wanasema they are not allowed, but wamefinywa. Because at the end of the day, they have to report to their bosses that such a thing happened. They took lives. So is IG Koome going to be jailed or what? Because they were under instructions, I'm sure. So we really need to start asking these difficult questions, because innocent Kenyans' lives are involved. Babies are involved. Our children are involved in this. They're being like a 2-year-old baby being shot, or a 3-year-old baby or a 5-year-old baby being shot. To be honest, anajua kurusha mawe, hajui kurusha mawe. Anajua Ruto must go, hajui. But hata wamama wetu wako tu kwa biashara zao, wanakuwa humbled up like wakipigwa. I mean, what kind of country are we in? What kind of country are we gonna live in? And what's our future? Because for us, we just need answers. And what we need is Ruto must go. And are we reconstituting the IBC? Sorry for taking the mic too long. Those are my questions.
Thank you very much for those questions, and I think they are critical. some of the questions were responded to, and it's very important that we go back to what we spoke about. On the question of police brutality and the abductions, the injuries meted on the members of the public through live bullets and rubber bullets and whichever form of injuries, we have documented this process from the beginning. As the Law Society of Kenya, we have, as we mentioned yesterday, over 36 cases in court challenging specific issues of abductions, of disappearances, of the deaths that have been experienced so far. We have documented, and we continue to document the deaths that were registered on Friday, were discovered on Friday in the Quarry. And I think it's important that the members of the public appreciate that as the Law Society, we have a tall number. And again, if you live within that space and you know that there's an injustice that has been committed within that space, it's very important that you actually utilize the toll number. I think it's on the page of the President of the Law Society, Faith Odhiambo's Twitter account. You can be able to, communicate anything confidentially as to what you have witnessed within this period so that the Law Society can be able to pick it up. I will want to invite, I can see we have journalists on this space. I'll want to invite them as speakers to answer the question as to whether the media is independent and whether it's being gagged. Even as we do so, I will ask one of the members, one of the advocates in this forum to answer the question of IEBC and the constitution of it. You are aware that the president signed the act a week ago on constituting the commissioners of the independent and the IEBC generally. So we will have someone to respond to those questions. But even before we do that, perhaps if I don't know whether Dr. Ben is here, we can give you that chance before we give John Alan Namu to respond to the question of the media and what the media is doing to ensure that they actually document what is happening. Dr. Ben, are you there? If Dr. Ben is not there, John Alan Namu, you have the microphone. Kindly, if you can proceed. You've had the questions that have been raised. John, are you there? Can you hear me? Wakili Ndegwa, can you respond to the questions of IEBC? You have the microphone even as we wait for the other speakers to confirm.
I am not sure the exact issue to address in respect to the IBC, but all what I would say is that we all know that we are the verge where we must reconstitute that body. And the procedure of the reconstitution is quite different from what was happening before, because we now have political parties playing a major role in the nomination, in the way and the manner in which the commission will be constituted. The most interesting thing that has come out of the amendments to, or rather the act, is the role of the political parties liaison committee. The political party liaison committee is a body that is constituted of various political parties that are duly registered, and they've been given a prominent role because they have 3 slots within which they will fill or to go to the panel that will play the role of selecting and interviewing the potential commissioners. And we all understand that that political parties are easily infiltrated by various conflicting interests. So the most important thing that we must do is that to guard jealously to make sure that political parties bring into the panel competent individuals who will play the role of selecting and interviewing the commissioners. Of course, you understand that garbage in, garbage out. If we are able to get garbage at the panelist level, you will expect that the commissioners will come there in after will also be the same garbage. Azimio and KK coalition have equally been given one individual. The church has been given one individual because the panels, the total number is 9. So the question is, how do we make sure that the individuals coming to that particular panel are men and women of integrity who are beyond reproach, and men who cannot be compromised by the conflicting interests? We must all understand that political parties will have serious interest in the manner in which the IBC is reconstituted. So we must, I'm imploring upon everyone to stay on guard, to make sure that who are beyond reproach and who are not capable of being compromised. Permit me to move to the next level of what is currently happening. I have had various submissions and listened to able presentations, but I'm just asking myself, are we going to continue relying on the existing institutions? In my view, this is, I think, 14th day from all when these disappearances and abductions took place, and there is nothing that has happened. Howard submitted and said that if you look at the manner in which these bodies are being discovered, the manner in which they are being stuffed in those gunny bags, the places in which they are being recovered from, in my view, it speaks about a very well choreographed, a systematic way of doing it. Then if you look at also the way they are spread, to me, I think it's the high time we now start thinking outside the box. Even as we give them the benefit of doubt, our existing institutions, as we give them the benefit of doubt, they should know that the big brother is watching. So I have kept on advocating that we need to operationalize other international mechanisms and instruments to make sure that in the event the local instruments fails, we will not perhaps have lost the most crucial evidence. Because as at now, we are relying on the individuals whom we perceive as perpetrators. Because in my view, unless the government comes out clean, we all make an assumption which is not rebuttable and which has not been rebutted, that this is as a result of the government apparatus or state apparatus. How then can we go ahead and still expect that the perpetrator can perhaps help us resolve the current existing scenario? In my view, and I'll still say again, be it the Human Rights Watch, be it the Kenya Human Rights Commission, all international organizations or bodies domiciled here within, including the local journalism, we need to expose these things critically. You remember during the post-election violence, Boniface Mwangi was able to collect. Sorry for that. Mwangi was able to collect a lot of pictorial evidence, which was displaying and which are currently displayed at the Museum of Kenya. That is part and parcel of activism that we all require to make sure that whatever is happening in this republic, the situation in Kenya may be projected out there, so that at the end of the day, people will get to know the existing situation. As at now, we still do not know how many people are missing. I seriously sympathized with that lady who was at the People's Assembly yesterday at Tufungamano. And there are so many people who are undergoing similar experiences. So, in my view, we need to move away from the from the Kenya Red Cross. We need to start documenting these, and we need people to assist us. If you require volunteers, we have people who can help organizations collect and collate this data. So that at the end of the day, when we go to the street on Tuesday, the state will know that we are not just depending on the state apparatus who can conceal and mutilate evidence. We are also crying out there to the world for them to come and witness the unfolding events in the Republic of Kenya. I beg to rest my case. unless there is any clarification that perhaps may be sought. I'm still online for consultation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Wakili. John Alan Namu, you have the microphone kindly.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you to the LSK and your very able president, Faith, for hosting this space. I've been listening and dipping in and out, unfortunately, technology issues on my end, so I apologize if anything that I'm about to say has already been said or already been covered. But today, as a Kenyan and as a journalist, I sit in a very difficult situation, in a very difficult position in this way. I've been documenting and, as a journalist first with private media and now, running my own independent media company. I've been documenting cases of extrajudicial executions from as far back as the beginnings of the Mungiki killings in 2005 going forward. And, what you start to see is a transformation in methods in places where these bodies are dumped, and usually a holding pattern where specific methodology is used that reflects that possibly there might be a hand of the state in doing so, right? So if I'm to compare what we witnessed with River Yala last year to what we've seen yesterday and today, there's a lot of parallels to be drawn now. But here's the difficulty for me. So because we, as the media generally are relied upon to relay credible information to members of the public, we have to, consult with a number of sources. Principle of which has been for years, the police and the state. And I think that the previous speaker speaks to the dilemma that we're in. We are now in a situation where the state is, there's such a low trust environment that we are in. I've never encountered this in all of my time reporting, that there's such low trust in the regime, there's such low trust in the state and in the police, that even their figures, even their numbers can't be relied upon. So it really is now a time of real reflection for us in the media, for for everybody generally, on how we can start to gather credible evidence around the kinds of things that are taking place in the country, and b, start to start the process of rebuilding the trust in institutions that we can all put our faith in. I mean, I've spoken about this before, but it's been said many times before that when institutions are over time have trust in them eroded through their actions, through corruption, and the various other things that we've witnessed in the country, we get to a situation where nobody can trust anything, and that becomes an incredibly hard place to navigate. So I'll speak to something that I've encountered over the past few weeks, beginning with what happened in Githurai, and and going forward. So we went out looking for people who can speak credibly to the things that have been taking place, and what we found is at the time that only one person was confirmed dead at that time, right? So we've been trying as hard as we can to find more evidence of even more people who have been killed, and the evidence can't just be people saying that things have happened. We have to go and verify these things for ourselves, lest we then become part of the crowd that's said to be misinforming people. That's a difficult kind of line that we have to walk as journalists now, and unfortunately, because there's a situation where our institutions are also not being trusted as well, the burden of trust that's being placed on us is incredibly high. One we do not shirk or do not run away from, but one that we must acknowledge is incredibly high. So at this point in time, as things go forward, I would implore members of the public to relying on the media organizations that they trust, or relaying information to the media organizations that they trust, to really, to really try as well, because this is a situation that we haven't encountered before, to also try and see what, the level of credibility of the information that's being passed along to us, that makes things easier for us to move a lot faster than we are. It makes things simpler for us to verify. And then the final thing that I will say, as I listen on to the kinds of things that are being said here and have been said elsewhere, is that we are also, just as Kenyans, so deeply pained and so deeply troubled by the things that have been going on with regard to extrajudicial executions, that it's even difficult to speak. I mentioned how long I've been covering these things. I mentioned, various instances in which, the state was implicated, and it's a very high trust that members of the public place in the state, place in the police, for them to consistently be implicated in these kinds of actions, and it's high time. It really is high time that we consider what kind of institutions we have, how we can rebuild them, who we can put our trust in, because as I've mentioned before, we are not held together by force. We're held together by trust. And so, I mean, if I'm to extend, this whole issue of trust to the kinds of things that LSK is doing now, this is how trust is built. Through working with communities, through being open and transparent, and we hope as well to be, counted amongst the people who can be trusted on and relied upon, but I'd also appeal for patience from members of the public. I'll stop for now and keep listening. But thank you very much for having me on this space. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Thank you, John, for those contributions. I think they're immense, and I think your conversation touches on the question that was raised about the role of the media in this whole process. And I hope that you will stay on for questions that will be raised on that line, around that line. At this juncture, I'll invite Samuel. I don't know whether, Samuel, you can hear me. You can take over. Samuel. Then after Samuel, we'll have Bio.
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm speaking from the diaspora, and I'm very happy for what the initiative the Law Society of Kenya has taken place. I have worked in the government before, and I want to bring to you something very serious that is crippling all the institutions. We have to understand that all bodies in Kenya, they work under the president. So the president appoints the cabinet secretaries. Then the cabinet secretary supervises the accounting officers, the PSS. So even if you get a very good PS right now, it will still be micromanaged from the presidency. So you need to read the political undertones of what are happening nowadays. There are some very junior government officers who can even give instruction directly to the PSS without even going through the cabinet secretaries. So what we need to do is to reform the country. You can't change the country without changing the top leadership. So even if you constitute the best cabinet right now, given the current political environment we have, those people will still be unable to deliver. We saw what happened, even getting the best Chief Justice after the new Constitution 2012. He was not able to work because he's still working, supervising people who are judges who are still corrupt. And those judges are still working with the political elite. So all the discussions we are doing right now, they will not work. And I'll tell you they will not work unless you change the top leadership. Most of the countries, most of us who have gone to outside countries we are working, we know that the president is the symbol of unity. If you don't have the trust with the president, then you find that all other institutions will not be able to work. So even if right now, if you go to even the smallest institutions, parastatals, wherever, Those board chairmen of those parastatals, let's go to KEMSA. You'll find that the chairman is more powerful than the CEO and is politically connected to the state house. So we are making so much discussions about how we are going to hold to tell people to work well. We are going to put the best people. Even if you get the best people from the world, whichever you bring them, they will not be able to work as long as they are receiving instructions from the president. So we might be a democratic country, that's a fact, but the way our structures work are dictatorial. So if it's only that right now all the cabinet secretaries, they are under the oath that they cannot disclose some things, but you might be surprised to find that some of the things happening in Kenya, even the interior secretary might not be able to know, and is just keeping quiet. Instruction they may have been issued without involving him. So we need to be very careful to tell Kenyans what is exactly wrong with our country. And our country is rotten at the head. So if you don't cut the head, every reform you are going to do, every institution you are going to do, even if you bring the constitution of UK, even if you bring the constitution of US, it is not going to work. So we need to find a system whereby we have we delink the control of the head of state to all the organization. Secondly, the police are at the disposal of the president. It's like a militia of the president. So the president can use the police to do whatever he or she wants. So most of the developed countries like the US, you can't have the president using the police to brutalize people. The police report to the Constitution, the judiciary, the Department of Justice. So as long as the police are reporting under the instructions of the president, and you can attest, when there were demonstrations, when the president issued the speech at night, that is when we started hearing about the Githurai whatever. That should not happen. That should be the work of the Inspector General to see that there is something happening and he needs to take and protect without being given any instruction by a political person. So the police should be meant to understand that they need to report the Constitution. But the way it is right now, let's continue discussing. Let's continue discussing. But even if we stay here for the next 10, 20 years discussing, all the problems start at the state house. That is where the problems are. So as GenZ are saying, we need to do vetting of the people whom we are going to bring to the cabinet or new members of parliament. Even if you bring the best of the best members to the parliament, the government has a machinery to make sure that those people who are speaking the truth or doing the right way, they are silenced. I'll just give the last comment. You all saw what happened in 2017 when the former Chief Justice Maranga, whom we really love and we really trust, personally I trust him 100%, he made a judgment from his own assessment and experience that the election was not credible. What happens? When people started, when he started being threatened by the president, the political elite and the people who come from the community of the president, they started attacking the Chief Justice. And the guy was very humiliated, even to extent when he went to do the handover. So that's how we are killing very best and the best brains we have in Kenya. So I want to stop there and say that the only option we have right now is to cut the head of the snake. If we don't, to come back and we'll forget about any more freedom of speech and we'll forget about any. Then lastly, I know the government has employed a lot of bloggers right now. They are trying to divert our attention right now. So let's be careful in the airspace. If you see any government, any person behaving like a blogger, there are so many right now. They have been bought and they have been infiltrated in the space. We need to unfollow them and ensure that we suppress their propaganda. Thank you very much. I've been waiting for this opportunity to speak, and I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Samuel. And I think you've raised some substantive issues with regard to the attitude in government. Of course, we know that the president directs a majority of the people he appoints in public office. And it's very important to know that the constitution we have now, that is approaching 14 years during its inception and promulgation in the year 2010, provides for accountability, provides for leadership and integrity provisions. And I think it's very important that we understand. And now that the public have an opportunity to uh, uh, participate in the process of appointment of the new cabinet secretaries, it's very important that we pay attention to the individuals who be proposed. And again, considering that this process will start again and will go through parliament through the vetting process, it's very important. It's very important that can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can someone hear me?
Yes, we can
Yeah,
hear
it's
you.
very important that we participate. Thank you very much. It's very important that we participate actively as citizens in the vetting process of the cabinet secretaries. We have the ability to know who among them has cases in court, who among them has been involved in corruption, who among them has been involved in any other matter that actually undermines the constitutional provisions under Chapter 6 and Article 10. And so it's very important on leadership and integrity. And so it's very important that we engage them based on those provisions of the Constitution. Maybe it took some time for people to appreciate the document that we have and how progressive it is. But we have this moment to now speak from those provisions and articles under the Constitution and participate in that process and ensure that actually the individuals appointed to public office take up those responsibilities. I'll give an example of the Office of the Attorney General. As the Law Society of Kenya, we sue government on a daily basis. From time immemorial, we sue the government on a daily basis on contraventions that touch on the Constitution. And in those suits, who comes on record on behalf of the ministries, cabinet secretaries, government entities, parastatals, and all? It's the Attorney General. And the funny bit is that we come to court and find that the Attorney General, who ought to have advised the president on the position of the law, coming to defend an illegality. The president must appoint a competent attorney general within the legal spaces. And I think the last attorney general who ever appeared in court was Professor Githu Muigai. He was one of the attorney generals we had who appeared in court physically as the titular head of the bar and actually argued cases, not only in Kenya, but at the International Criminal Court as the attorney general. The responsibility of the attorney general is a huge responsibility under the Constitution, and I know you guys have gone through the work of the Attorney General and the responsibilities that he has in terms of advising government. The irony is this: that the Attorney General spends a majority of his time to defend the government on questions he knows that are unconstitutional in the first place. Because as the Law Society, we don't go to court to challenge anything. We challenge decisions that have been made against the Constitution. And it's very important to appreciate that that office is more important than any other office. And the president should be very keen as to who he appoints to be Attorney General, because otherwise, without a proper Attorney General in office, you will definitely have every government decision challenged in court. It was not the intention of the drafters of the Constitution of Kenya 2010 to have the Attorney General defend unconstitutional pronouncement through executive orders. I will list as many as I can. In under the previous government, the Law Society challenged the transfer of the Kenya Meat Commission from the Minister of Agriculture to the Minister of Defense. We challenged the appointment to cabinet of Honorable Badi, a military man. We challenged executive orders transferring independent judicial offices to ministries. And yet we know the Constitution provides for separation of powers, that the judiciary is an independent institution and it cannot be managed under the executive. We know that ministries are under the executive arm of government. Why would you transfer independent and constitutional offices to be managed in form of resources under the ministries of government? And those are constitutional questions that we need to speak to. And I think if the president is listening, and I know he has people within these spaces, he needs to ensure that the person he appoints as the attorney general is someone who has capacity to advise him. And even as he appoints him, because one of the biggest problem this government has had is to appoint political friends into cabinet positions. Cabinet positions are appointive. And that's why we vet cabinet secretaries through parliament on the basis of their qualifications to find out whether they meet the threshold. And that's why the Constitution provided for a competitive process of appointment to public office. A competitive process means you do not have to decide on the basis of your friend. This is not a personal office. It's a public office where you're going to receive a salary from people's pockets in form of taxes. So you have to ensure that the person you are appointing to those cabinet positions meet the competitive, procedural, and substantive process of appointment to public office. And what does that entail? It entails any other person, regardless of their tribe, where they come from, regardless of how they look like, their color. Because under Article 27, discrimination on the basis of anything, regardless of this individual has one leg, has one eye. These are Kenyan citizens who have I think there are old parliaments which had proper discussions and debates on questions of bills, legislation of
Co-host. Who was on the floor? Is it Fanyamambo who was on the floor? Hello?
No, I was not on the floor. I was waiting for an opportunity to speak. This is Panyamambo. I was not on
Okay,
the
then
floor.
you can speak. You can speak.
Okay, once again, thank you very much, Madam President. Thank you very much to the Law Society. Thank you very much to everybody who has worked so hard to put this together. You know, I know what the Law Society of Kenya is going through during these times, you know, having 36 cases, the number of times you people have had to go to police stations, the number of people you have had to look for. We don't take that for granted. So, Law Society of Kenya, we are proud of you. You have stepped in. And I'm not saying this because I know some of you personally. I am saying this because your work has been seen. So, we as Kenyans are grateful and we are happy and we see your work. We see a Law Society of Kenya that cares about citizens, and that is a good thing. Of course, there'll be people who will be seeing what has not been done, and they'll keep telling you what LSK hasn't done. But I think for us, from where we sit, we first look at what you people have done and how it has impacted on the lives of especially those you've touched. So thank you, and continue doing the good work. Now, having said that, I think for me, there are only two things I would like to talk about. The first one is on where does the buck stop? You cannot be a head of state who on the one hand comes and says and calls people criminals and says that government is going to do everything within its power to protect its sovereignty, and even go ahead to promise to deploy the military and actually deploy them. And then, of course, the military come to the streets, they look at things and they discover we have nothing to do here. And by the way, I think the people who advise the head of state also don't give him proper advice, because the military are only trained to kill. Their tools of trade is the gun, the grenade, the bomb, the RPG, and so on. So when they see crowds, I think they got confused on the streets because they were asking themselves, is this where we deploy the grenade? Or is this where we throw, an RPG? Or is this where we just fire using the automatic rifles? So the military got confused because they've never been taught how to use a tear gas. So what they were doing on the street remained vague to them. So, but we cannot have a head of state who comes and chest thumps and says that we are going to deal with demonstrators, we are going to deal with criminals. And then when people die and bodies are collected in dump sites, it is said, no, it is the IG of police. So on the one hand, you have the monopoly to threaten people and say that you will use brute police force. But when that brute police force translates into the death of people, then it becomes that the head of state is not responsible. The person responsible for that is the commissioner of police. That for me now becomes a great point of departure between myself and an administration of that kind. The second thing I want to speak about is on human beings, because the difference between me and an animal is that human beings have language. It follows, therefore, that the highest tool of resort for the resolution of any dispute has to be language. Because monkeys don't have a language they can speak. Cows, I just see them look at one another and touch one, and I don't think cows have a language. But we have language. So that when animals get angry, they either fight or chase one another or draw their paws. But human beings have language. So when did we find ourselves as a nation having dropped to animal level that you have to use the baton and the instinct to pass a message? Because as far as I'm concerned, what takes us higher than everybody else is language. The ability to have a communication in different languages, but at least we have a way in which we speak that no other creatures in the world are able to do. So anytime we reduce ourselves to using the tools that are used by creatures lower than ourselves, it means we've taken away from ourselves that which was special and that which put us above every other person. Finally, I would like to say that this administration lost a moment. And I'm happy that I did not advise them, because I wouldn't want them to win in this particular case, because they would have won in a way that is not beneficial to the nation. Number one, when these young people died, I would have expected this administration to come forward and show compassion and try to attend even at least one matanga, or, make a personal contribution. The head of state would have said, I am not doing this as government of Kenya, and I'm not trying to pay for a life lost. But naomba niandikwe kwa kitabu ya matanga. Just right there's a citizen called William, and he's donated 100,000 or 200,000 to help in the burial. They lost a moment, because I would have expected the governor Sakaja to come and say, any young person who will be buried in Langata because they died in maandamano will not pay the cemetery fees. That would have gone a long way. I looked at how some of these families have struggled to move their bodies from Nairobi to whatever other areas they'll be buried. And I asked myself, how many buses does NYS have? And what would it have cost government to say, we are donating 10 NYS buses to carry the young people and the families to help them go and mourn? This would have gone a long way in reaching out to the family and showing that there's a humane hand behind what is happening. But what we've seen is a condescending attitude. What we've seen is later other bodies being collected everywhere. What we've seen is government appearing to tell us that they are not concerned about what is happening in the personal lives of people. So I am deeply worried today. I mean, when I saw the images of what was happening and how human bodies were being collected in bags and sacks, I felt that I don't think there's a nation on earth that has allowed itself to sink this low. And I don't think there's anything a human being can do to deserve to be killed and put in a gunia and thrown in a dumping site. Really, these people killed nobody. These people took away from nobody. So we demand a lot of answers. And even if we don't get a lot of answers, one thing is clear, that Kenyans, for the first time, need to know the ballot is not just a useless paper you throw in a box. It matters a lot who you choose and why you choose them. Once again, Law Society of Kenya, Faith Odhiambo, Madam President, and all the people who've worked so hard behind the scenes. I met you, Madam President, one day at a function, and I remember you kept saying, Fanya Mambo, we need to finish early because there are so many people who are stuck at Central Police Station and we need to go and help them out. So, Madam President, for what you've done, and for what the Law Society of Kenya has done, and for what every other person in this platform has done. I've listened to John Alan Namu. I've listened to my friend, we call him impeachment lawyer, Ndego Anjiro, and the many other speakers who've spoken before. And I can see everybody who is on this platform is not just here to give a mere rhetoric and speak. They have made a meaningful contribution in this process. And for that, me and many other Kenyans are saying thank you, because it is that little contribution, that big contribution, that is making Kenya a better place. Because if people like you did not come out to do something, this country would be a horrible place. May God bless everyone who has in any way just come out and done something to help somebody who needed their help. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fanya Mambo and Humbled. And indeed, we have a long way on the things that we need to do. Manu, you take over. I think the next
Thank you.
speaker.
Thank you, Madam President. We have several advocates lined up. I think we can give the microphone to PLO. Even as we take more questions, I think Wakili PLO, you can take it over. Then we have Dudley, and then we proceed like that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, General Member Lsk. Good evening, Madam President. Thank you for hosting this particular space. And good evening to the rest of the patriots who've joined here in to be part of this noble cause. Well, I would dive right into the deep waters by first opening my submissions by saying that anyone who's ever read, not just read, but understood history will never, ever trust politicians. The next quote I will borrow from Boniface Mwangi, the People's Watchman, a great patriot who has been part of this cause. he said, and I think that's one of his pinned tweets, he said that other countries have mafias, but in Kenya, the mafias have a country. So that is the difference, and that's the kind of stalemate disease that we're trying to find its cure throughout the peaceful protest that we've seen over time, and which have yielded to a bit of progress, much more to be done, but we can say it was a noble cause. So I was to respond on the IEBC question, and I just like to give you a background. We've had around three bills actually on IEBC. The first bill was the IEBC Amendment Bill number 49 of 2022. This bill was assented into law around January last year, and this paved the way for the the select panel. And then we have the IEBC Bill number 50 of 2023 by Mwangi Kiunjuri. And this was read the first time on 18th October 2023, and then it's been pending in Parliament since. And then we have the IEBC Amendment Bill number 10 of 2024, which was assented into law just the other day. Okay. And then there is a legislative proposal. For those of you who may not know, around April, Parliament, the National Assembly, that is, set aside a session, an entire session, to discuss, two proposals. One by Alice Nganga on the delimitation boundaries, and then two, which is of critical importance, is about the IEBC Amendment Bill. So what my interest will be on this IEBC Amendment Bill, it's still a legislative proposal. It's not yet a bill published for to undergo the legislative process, but it is a legislative proposal. So what this particular bill, which I think our uproar should equally be focused on with the same energy as we focused on other things, is that this particular legislative proposal is meant to, give powers to the IEBC CEO, that is Marjan Hussein Marjan, the secretary or the head of the secretariat, that the secretariat can actually conduct elections in the absence of the apex, policy-making organ of IEBC, that is the 7 commissioners. So for me, that is a tragedy waiting to happen, and it was a proposal meant to be there by design. So I don't know if it will be published into a bill, but in as much as the Speaker of the National Assembly, designated a time and day for discussion of this particular proposal, that it means it is likely to be published as a bill. So that is the background I needed to give you. So focus on the recently enacted bill, that is the IEBC Bill number 10, now an act of Parliament. So this bill was sponsored by the leader of majority, Kimani Ichung'wah, and the leader of a minority, in the National Assembly, that is Opiyo Wandayi. So this particular bill now the act, meant to give effect to some of the recommendations and views of the public that were actually submitted during the National Dialogue Discourse on the issues of electoral justice and related matters. So that will mean you have outstanding constitutional matters, you have, the fidelity to political parties, the coalitions, and the law on multi-party democracy. And then the other spectrum was on the entrenchment of the national government constituencies development fund, and then the Senate Oversight Fund, and the National Government Affirmative Action Fund, and lastly, the establishment and entrenchment of state offices. So this act, when it was a bill, its main purpose was to amend the IEBC Act number 9 of 2011 to clean up this particular act by deleting, what the sponsors of the bill termed obsolete provisions. They meant that this particular bill, now act, it meant to make some consequential amendments intended to align itself, with that act, the number 9 of 2011, and the judgment of the High Court, in Katiba Institute and 3 others versus AG, and 2 others, which I know my my learned colleague Dudley, who is on the panel, will equally touch on. And then, where the High Court actually held that, certain provisions of the Act were actually unconstitutional. Okay. And then now the Act, then bill, it further meant to amend Section 6 of the IEBC Act number 9 of 2011 and include experience in accounting or information and communication technology as core requirements or additional professional qualifications for appointment as a member of the IEBC Commission, right? And then lastly, this act, then bill, it further meant to amend the first schedule of the IEBC Act number 9 of 2011, which is the critical and most important fulcrum of this particular discussion, to increase the number of members of the select panel from 7 to 9. So keep in mind that the IEBC bill act that was signed into law last year in January, by the head of state had, the 7 members. So this particular act enacted the other day increased this number to 9 in order to accommodate what, again, the arguers and the sponsors of this particular act then bill, to accommodate a wide spectrum of stakeholders and interest group, right? And the last amendment that this particular act sought to cure was to replace the current, 5th schedule with, a new and updated, schedule. So when you look at how this act is actually, wired, so my focus will be on the select panel, because as it then was, it was about having representative from the Law Society of Kenya. That was one, and then you had representatives from PSC. You had representatives from one man and one woman nominated by PSC. You had one person nominated by the political parties liaison committee. You have two persons nominated by the Interreligious Council of Kenya. So the extra additional slots equally were given to accommodate other stakeholders. So keep in mind that the second Tuesday of August every 5th year is the designated elections day as constitutionally enshrined. So here we are, the select panel is that to be constituted. And what that will mean, we are today's on 13th of July. So by the time, the select panel is constituted and running, of course, they have to put out the call for application, public participation, and what have you, in compliance with Article 10 of the Constitution. So by the time you have interviews, beginning should be around mid-August, thereabout. And by the time we have a fully constituted IBC, that is around October 1st. Yeah, for luck, October 1st is the most likely ideal date when we'll have at least an operational IBC. So now here's the catch. When you look at Article 104, because the conversation right now across the country is about right of recall. I mean, how do you recall your members of parliament, the dissolution of parliament here and there? So Article 104, I think Parliament was quite clever. The operationalization of Article 104 on the right of recall was never fully factored until 6 years ago when we had the 3-judge, High Court bench giving us a judgment on, yes, the right of recall, subjected to given conditions here and there. I think it was Section 45, thereabout. You had the Elections Act, and then you had the County Governments Act. So now you have a situation whereby the 2nd August, that is the second Tuesday of August every 5th year, what that judgment said is you can't recall any member of parliament before the first 24 months. So that will mean August, the second Tuesday of August will be the lapse of the first 24 months, technically, and then not beyond the last 12 months of the subsistence of the tenure of this particular member of parliament. So the moment this particular provision will be actualized, to have at least different constituents trying to recall the members of parliament, should be around September, of course, or maybe October 1st, when ideally we would have a running, IEBC. So that is the dilemma we're dealing with, because, when you look at the selection of nominees, this particular selection panel, of course, shall within 7 days, of its appointment, invite applications from qualified persons and publish these particular names of all applicants and their qualifications in the Gazette, in the Kenya Gazette rather, and then equally on 2 dailies of nationwide circulation and on the website, of different. It could be PSC, it could be whatever institution, and then now this select panel, the 9-member select panel, moving from the 7-member. And keep in mind that the moment this particular act was signed, in this particular bill, the IBC bill number 10 of 2024, was signed into law, then the prior, select panel, their tenure ceased to be operational. Okay, so now the interviews, again, have to be conducted in public, and I hope media will actualize this. And then after conducting these interviews, the select panel again, shall select qualified persons, here and there, and then the president equally actioning the same. And of course, we have to maintain gender equity and regional balance. Yeah, so that's basically the framework of how the IEBC Amendment Act would actually take effect. So unless there was any other question, Mr. Manuel.
Thank you, PLO. I think you've explained and answered the question that was asked by one of the members. I think it was Samuel. I am hoping that you can stay on just in case if other questions are raised on this issue. I don't know. Dudley dropped. Dudley, are you there? Even as we wait for Dudley to come up, let's have Redemptor. Mwikali, kindly, you can take over.
Asante sana. I hope you can hear me. So my name is Redemptor Mwikali. I am a rights activist who writes. I document violations that happen in my country. That makes me a human rights activist. And I'm very passionate about victim advocacy to the extent it has put my life in danger sometimes. I want everyone who is a lawyer, a psychologist, a sociologist to take a pen and paper and write these steps that is the spiral of silence or the spiral of atrocity and what happens. And before I continue, I have said that Kenya needs to have its flags flown at half-mast because we are in distress, we are in mourning. The bodies that have been discovered in the last 2 days were put there by the state, either by commission or omission. They failed to protect citizens. And it breaks my heart that Kenyans are now bodies and statistics. I started doing what I'm doing from 2017. And it's interesting and very sad that all the mass murders in this are as a result of elections or people wanting to be in power. So these are the steps I would like you to write down because they will help us fix this problem, even if not fully. Step number 1 is when the case breaks and people are outraged and media rushes to the scene. And then the numbers become an issue because you have to get the official figures from the government. And I feel we are in a space where people are specializing in hiding bodies. And I'm sorry, that's a very strong statement. The second step is the crime scene is protected because, of course, so that we preserve evidence. And then the third step is you tell people to leave the site, like happened in Shakahola, and then maybe a task force is set up. The bodies are taken to the morgue, and then the declarations are they are going for forensics and being investigated. The fifth step, which is the second injustice that families face, and I hope I represent the families who have been hurt by the state well today. The fifth step is families are told to come and report if their loved ones are missing. This is a very antagonizing, very agonizing step. People come from all over the country. Poverty is a weapon right now, so they have no resources to come to present themselves. Now, the advocate Ndegwa had talked about collecting data. Data is only verified through certain organizations like the Kenya Human Rights Commission, Amnesty International, so you cannot even collect the data. So you rely on these families for data. Once the data has been collected by Red Cross, then it's protected under law. So you will never get that data. You'll never know how many people reported their loved ones as missing. And then the next step is, once, of course, keep it confidential, and then we start to ghost that process. The spiral of silence, the media goes to the next atrocity in our country, and these victims are left behind. These families are forgotten. They make noise, a few make noise, the media comes and try to revive the story. They make some noise, they have the faces of those people that were violated. And then once those people start making too much noise, they appease those ones. For example, in the case of Shakahola, the people who are on the media are told, why do you keep going to the media? We will give you justice. And then the most injustice is when they say, we are waiting for DNA results. How do we then have a legal process when there's no will to process? Because if you do not have DNA, how do you then say, I lost my loved one? You will not even get an OB in certain incidences. And then the last part is, of course, the legal processes that exist. IPOA should take over and you become a statistic. We are talking about 1,000 people in 2008. We're talking about, I don't know the figures in 2013, 2017, but we have the lockdown figures of about 20. We have 2023, about 70. We have 453 Kenyans in a container. This breaks my heart. If I know the government is listening, this regime will not have peace until we bury the victims of Shakahola. I have committed myself to documenting the families of that massacre. I was summoned, and I want here the lawyers to figure out how you're going to put this in law, that there's a new form of police brutality, and it's called a police summon, abduction. And what that does to the human spirit, the heart, it kills your courage. You can never just be the same again after that experience. I went through that experience for only 2.5 hours. It changed me, it cowered me, and I felt the trauma of all the families that I was documenting. Now, 191 children, there is a case in court, but those children have not been buried. Spiritually, because we have a president who says he's spiritual, we will not get closure until we start burying the people we kill. And I feel like the young people have saved us. I was losing my mind at the levels of injustice in this country. I was unknown. I was just a silent warrior going to the field every time there's an atrocity. But this one of 453 is where we stop. It's where we say we cannot have a family having parties when their bodies are in the mortuary. And the bodies that we are talking about now that are breaking our heart, those are people. Those are young people. That is the future of this nation. One member of parliament who was a woman was screaming, stop killing our children. And I think that is where the next clarion call needs to go. So I want to congratulate the president of the Law Society of Kenya, because you've come in with a freshness that is needed by, I'm sorry to talk to all the other heroes in the CSOs who've done a great job, but it's time for some of us to retire and let the younger people who can look at things with fresh eyes come in. You've done a great job. It's time to say, you know what, this activism takes a toll on us. It kills us to see that it's all about leadership, not leadership, rulership. It's all about entrepreneurs. Let me tell you why we have no injustice. Our priorities are so misplaced that you have people going to America, people who should not go to America on a joyride, or people who go for shopping sprees. We have money that we wasted on what is a task force. I don't know what it was called for Shakahola, but we cannot afford DNA reagents. I am saying this, risking everything, because I have been told, who are you and who has sent you and why are you investigating this? Because until we do right by all the victims, and we start here, even these young women, these are our children who've been collected in an inhumane manner, and we're watching and we are all getting traumatized. The anger is sometimes driven at the wrong places. And I've said we owe the younger generation, for those who fight for rights, all the champions, we owe them the truth. And the truth is, we do not have a legal problem, we have a moral problem. We have people who have no value for life. I hope they are listening to me, because the scene that describes what our leaders are was Kenyans in their thousands screaming outside Parliament. And yet they continued discussing the bill. That told me they do not care. So we have a problem of not realizing this spiral that I gave you. What happens is then people become statistics. So I pray that all the other organizations can bring fresh people and become advisors to these organizations. And that is the only way we will defeat the injustices that are in our country. So these people are not statistics. These people represent the rottenness of our morality, that people can die and be in a container for 1 year, and you're going on a trip and you're spending 20 million, when that 20 million would have bought reagents. And then I read on the papers yesterday that it was illegal for the task force, or whatever they call it. It was illegal, but it spent money. And then we get an announcement this week that there's a likelihood that these people will be buried in Shakahola. What kind of injustice is that? That you bury people where you exhumed them. And there's a delaying tactics where you let bodies decompose to a state that there's no evidence that can be collected. Do we need then to overhaul how we do forensics? Because if the police cannot police themselves, if the government cannot be accountable for the atrocities that are caused by their agents. And I've said we owe the younger generation the truth. And I've told mine who are in the streets the truth, that reparation justice is not a walk in the park. I have documented 2017 post-election. It took 4 years. The inquiry took 4 years. This family visited the court 40 times trying to seek for justice. And to date, they've never gotten any reparation. They've never gotten any compensation. So I was following your proceedings yesterday. It was a wonderful opportunity, because I'm out of Nairobi, to be able to see, and the punching bag became IPOA. And I want to commend what IPOA does with limited resources. So maybe the money that goes to churches, we can take that budget to IPOA, because they are the good cops. And there are many good cops in this country. What is happening in our society is a representation of light and dark, evil and good. And I believe evil always overcomes. So let's think about the evil. Good always overcomes evil. And we shall reclaim our glory as people who fear God, because when you have blame games and you politicize death, and you start saying our enemies did this and dump bodies, you have failed to protect those young people. We've seen those videos from 2023. Those videos have traumatized us. And I can't begin to imagine what it feels like to be IPOA, or to be IPOA, because these people's lives are also at risk. When people are saying, when the young people were talking yesterday and saying, IPOA, come to us, we can't come to you, their lives are also at risk. It's become a 1,000 ways to die to be a champion for justice in this country. But we are unrelenting, we care. I'm here to represent all those families from the ones I've interacted with from 2017 to say there's hope in this country. The young people have given us hope again. They don't know about our histories of injustice, we can start writing afresh. And I wish every champion of justice, every patriot, every person of goodwill, I wish them well. It's a painful time for us. Anybody who has an opportunity to have a flag in their office or somewhere, just put it at half-mast until we see a semblance of justice in this country when it comes to extrajudicial killing, the accountability. And I repeat, until the bodies that were picked today are buried with human dignity, until the bodies that have been, it's going to be very hard to talk about justice, because that in itself is an injustice. So the new form of police brutality kindly address that. And the police, the kwekwe, I don't know who you have a contract with. It must be the devil himself, because the things that we see when you start doing these things and the words that come out of your mouth, the person who sent you is going to come for you. That's what happens with hitmen, all the movies that we do. Sorry, I'm very passionate about what I do. I don't know why I got the chance to talk, because I was looking at all the big wigs speaking and I said, will I get a chance? But I'm very passionate about victim advocacy, and I am available to share what I have discovered, because the hurting nation is why Kenya blew up, but we can still save this country. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mikali, for those sentiments. I think it's very important to actually listen to what you have said, especially what you are going through. And I think it's important that you have shared your sentiments with us. I will allow X-Holding. X-Holding, can you hear me? Before we go to Lekish, you have the microphone. Kindly
Yeah, I can
confirm.
hear you. Good evening.
Kindly proceed quickly.
Good evening.
Good evening. Kindly proceed.
Yes. First of all, I want to thank the host, Madam Faith Odhiambo, for the work you've done so far since the beginning, setting up a team of lawyers to turn up anywhere. And I did like 2 days or 3 days ago when one of us was arrested in Kafutani. The number was really, really nice. Now, back to business. I'd prefer where, I don't know whether Faith is listening or something, but I have certain questions to ask. Sorry if I'm taking people back. Perhaps somebody else have talked about this one before I joined. And mine's about to the outgoing, the ex-CSs now, and specifically to Kindiki. Again, I'm saying sorry if somebody had asked about, if this was addressed about the outgoing CS, and this I'm talking Nakumincha, Kindiki, Murkomen, and the likes. Does the law, or there's a way that we can punish these people, like not really punish, but really?
Thank you. I'm listening, but Manwa will take the question, and we are quite a number of advocates. He can even guide who will answer. So thank you. Just proceed.
Okay, thank you. My question is about going the CS for the things you've done, specifically Kindiki for the deaths, and Murkomen for corruption, Nakumincha for corruption. Is there a way, or is your team having a, do they have a plan to address the things they've done during their time in the government? That's my first question. I do hope Kindiki specifically need to answer the question for Kware and among other deaths that we've had in this while. Now, my second question comes to, let me take you back before the Mandamano. It's the same question though, for Shakahola. I don't get it. I know the law drugs and all that kind of stuff, but why is it that for Shakahola there's never been a solid case? Like literally this guy, the prosecution just buy time to add more days for this guy behind the bars, but like literally there's nothing going on. So for that's specifically for the deaths. What's going on? What rather is your team doing to get people that have been one way or the other responsible for the death of innocent people in Kenya? Back to Mandamano and everything. Now, we've seen this guy, the liar, the murderer, the dictator. Tell me, does the provision provide for a way, should we get this out of the seat to conduct rather like a general election or not? Because this person need to go. He's buying time by buying people on the other side of the team, the people that we don't like, the people that I've read, sorry, this is not a fact I cannot verify or something. I've read that the other team
We have lost you. Can you hear me? I think we have lost you. I think we have lost the speaker. Lekisha, are you there?
Yeah, I am here. Are you talking about me, Lekishon?
Yeah, Lekishon. Sorry.
Asante sana.
You can proceed. I
Yeah, you
think we have
can call
lost
me
a
Lekisha
good
too. It's
time.
a short form.
Thank you.
I
Kindly proceed.
requested the mic when the question about journalists was being asked there, and now my senior Alan already spoke about what I wanted to speak. But the role of journalists in all this is to expose and show what is happening. The authorities' role is to act and to speak for or against, and we are to question. For example, Muliona, when Ruto was having a talk with the media, they asked him questions. You could see, hata kama kulikuwa na kupapasa kidogo, the journalists were hard on him, but alikuwa anapapaswa kidogo. Some of us tukiwatch, we could really say that this is not the way to ask this guy. He should be held accountable. But nilikuwa nataka kusema media in Kenya, hakuna wakati nimefeel proud as a journalist like this time round. I've seen the media hold Ruto accountable. I have seen the Law Society of Kenya hold this government accountable. Nilikuwa leo nang'ang'ana na kujibu some responses from some guys wanna comment on whether Faith or Lsk President. And I was struggling to respond to them that his role is part of his role, part of her role is ABCD. So everybody about the movement that is going on in Kenya. I am based in Norway for now, but watching the movement going on in Kenya, when I see young people, the professional societies like LSK, the media, everybody coming together. Nilipoona medics wakiweka camps wakati wa maandamano, Law Society wanaweka tents to provide legal advice, wakiingia cells. I was moved by tears. Nikasema, this is the Kenya I've been wishing to see. When people wanna rise beyond tribalism, beyond nepotism, kwa sababu for a long time maandamano yamekuwa yakihusishwa sijui ni ya watu kutoka sehemu fulani, sijui Ujaluoni, sijui what. I've been speaking in some other spaces. I tell the GenZs, kama hapa sion mtu akizungumza stories za GenZs, this is a very sober discussion. I don't have to raise that, to raise that. So I've seen people rise against a regime. It's because we want the Kenya we want. Some of us have been in this. You may not know some of us, but we have been in this for a long time. Hata Faith hakujulikana until akawa president wa LSK, and what she is doing, ndio maana watu wanashangaa huyu ni opposition leader ama ni government. So we have media role, we have authorities role, and we have citizen role. I am happy that the citizens have also risen to their role to react, to act. The authorities are now confused. That's why you see some government officers are confused. What time are we? The time where the middle class are rising, the poor are rising, because opposition imekuwa ikisemekana ni ya Wajaluo maskini kutoka Kibera. Now that middle class and even the educated, uneducated, everybody is rising. That is the wish of where we want to have Kenya. Alan amesema mengi. I have covered extensively in my private journalism capacity, for instance, some corruption cases in my church, with which we, for example, I have a warrant of arrest. I am a political commentator in many ways. For instance, I had a little battle hiyo yote yenye nimesema. How do you expect, for example, William Ruto to join the killing regime to offer condolences? Nimesikia watu wakizungumza like wanashangaa wakuona Ruto. How do you expect Ruto to join in giving condolences? His language is the money. Alikuwa anazungumza kwa ile press conference niliona akiwa nayo, anazungumza ni kama hajali maisha, anajali wale ambao property ambayo imeharibika. So how do you expect a person whose first job in 1992 ilikuwa ni YK kupora na kuua? How do you expect a person mwenye amedanganya umma na uongo umefikia mwisho aweze kutetea kinyume na hayo? I have really questioned a lot of Gen Zs. I argued a lot with the Gen Zs ambao kuna mtu wa 19 years in 2022 before elections. Nilimuuliza, unaenda kabisa kupigia Ruto kura. Can you respect some of us who know history kidogo tukuambie uelimike? Wanakataa kuelewa. Nao wakati wamerais, one of them jana called akisema I'm sorry, now join us the Gen Z tuwaonyeshe vile elections inaleta watu wana leadership inaletwa. So and I said no, you are joining, you are not showing me, you are joining. Some of us have been there before. Kwa sababu ya tribalism in Kenya, vile PLO usema, the blood of ethnicity has been thicker than the blood of Jesus Christ. Kuna watu ambao wamekuwa wakisema this maandamano ni ya so and so. So William Ruto has been a person, watu wengi hawaelewi, alijificha nyuma ya kanisa akiitisha ama akitoa mwito kwamba yeye ni kiongozi, na watu wengi wakasema si uchawi, ni Mungu. Lakini kwa sababu njia ya mwongo ni fupi na siku za mwizi ni 40, haya maandamano na huu mwito mpya ni kwa sababu ya kwamba siku za mwizi 40 katika uongozi wa Kenya zimefikia. Ndio maana mimi nikiwa nje ya Kenya ninachangamka nikisema pongezi, heko wa Kenya kwa huu mwito, kwa huu mwamko mpya, na asante sana kwa professionals kama mawakili kujitokeza. Nimeona LSK za kitambo, nimeona watu ambao wamekuwa wakisimama na wananchi wakigeuka. Nimeona watu wengi wakizungumza kwamba kumekuwa na fake investigations. It's upon you, the Law Society of Kenya, upon the media, investigative journalists like John Alan Namu na mimi na wengine, wajitokeze to expose. For example, Alan Namu ali expose mambo ya fertilizer in a country that responsibility lies. Ama tumeshuhudia some of the politicians wakiresign kwa sababu politician amenunua biscuit kwa public money in the countries we are today. Kwa sababu tumeona politician amepeleka girlfriend kwa public money akiresign. In a country kama Kenya, ala nama anatuonyesha exactly vile fertilizer imeibiwa, and then agriculture minister amekwamilia. A president has to kill people to remain in power, to announce kwamba amefuta mawaziri wake wote. It's a shame. It's a shame, but Kenya, we are setting an example. I can tell you, I can assure you, for example, Norway is a small country ambayo news inakuwa absorbed kwa mfano from the village level. They don't even watch national, they don't even read national newspaper. They read local newspapers. The news is here in the local area that I am. I am living in a village in Norway. Wanasoma news about the revolution of the young people in Kenya. Wanasoma about what is going on in Kenya. So my Kenyan people, the LSK, the media fraternity, and everybody in this war, tusiogope. This is the time that some of us have been wishing for a long time. Let us make these politicians humble. Nilisikia mtu akisema, how do we deal with debts? Amesema hawa watu for example wanalipwa marupurupu baada ya kustaafu, a lot of money, wanalipwa mishahara mingi sana. How do we reduce that to pay the debts ambazo wanazungumzia? How do we deal with making a politician? I remember some time back nikiwa hapo Museum Road, tumesimama karibu 30 minutes, alafu polisi ananiambia sijui ni tunangoja because President Kibaki anapita. Nikasema but rais anaenda kwa ofisi kama mwingine. Kwa nini mimi nisimamishwe 30 minutes ndio polisi apite? Let us be vigilant. Nimeitishwa police clearance nikitafuta kazi hapa Norway juzi. Nimetuma maombi yangu, polisi hapa akaniambia kuja nikutoe fingerprints, scan and send to the DCI in Kenya. And DCI in Kenya atachukua hizo approve, halafu aniambie kwamba anitumie nini police clearance ambayo Kenya tunaita certificate of good conduct. Alafu polisi mtu nimetuma huko anamwambia nimpatie 15,000. Let us be vigilant. Kwa nini IDs zitoke after the given duration passports? It's a rotten system. How do we make this system work? It's by what we are doing. This rising, this uprising, I join, I congratulate, I support. Niko ndani kwa roho na mwili. Asanteni kina Faith Odhiambo. Simama hivyo hivyo hata ukikuita opposition leader, kwani tuko na nani tena? Kama Raila ameondoka, my disappointment to Raila, since nianze kupiga kura nimepigia Raila since 2007 mpaka saizi nimekuwa nikipigia Raila. Kazi yake ni tukiandamana. Wakati akiapishwa nilikuwa pale maandamano. Ndio maana naambia watu wadogo, kujeni tuwapee ushauri. Nyinyi ni kwa sababu mko na simu za kupiga na nini, kujeni tuwapee mashauri. Anaenda handshake na kadhalika. Hata juzi ameonekana akisimama na muelewa kidogo. Kuna watu wamelaumu na muelewa kidogo, lakini kwa sababu ya hilo, let us have a new Kenya, the Kenya where the system works. I join you, I support you, I congratulate you. Let us all work from areas of our professions, from the media to the law to the medics to everybody, rise, and let us make Kenya the great country that is respected in the world. Asante.
Thank you very much for those contributions. I need us to understand that as a society, under the leadership of the President of the Law Society of Kenya, Faith Odhiambo, we have initiated processes through the relevant government authorities to bring necessary reforms. You know, as a matter of fact, that the Constitution of Kenya provides for it gives requirements as to how you need to treat the members of the public, especially if they have committed or suspected to have committed any offense under the penal code or any criminal statute. And I think we from the first time we had demonstrations in the streets, we have documented largely. And of course, whereas we don't have capacity, we have institutions that have capacity. And I think Mwikali illustrated that there are institutions that have that mandate, but some of this information is not given to the public. But as the Law Society, we will keep it open to the public, the information that we have from the police stations. And it's important to know and appreciate the fact that the different departments of the Law Society have sent advocates in all police stations across the country to document and to assist in ensuring that there is no injustice that is meted on any individual of the public who, while exercising their right under Article 37 and who have been incarcerated in police stations, are presented in court if there is a charge. And if they don't intend to present these individuals in court, they are released on their personal cognizance. And I think we have achieved much. And I can speak confidently as the convener of the public interest litigation that a majority of the individuals who are incarcerated in police stations across the country have already been released. And whereas we have documented those injustices, and whereas we have instituted those cases we indicated earlier, over 36 cases that we have filed on the questions of abductions, on the questions of injuries orchestrated by our police officers, on the questions of deployment of the military, on the questions of disappearances and the deaths that have been registered as late as this Friday. We are committed to ensure that individuals in those offices, in public offices who are responsible for this, are able to account to the last person. And I like the submissions by Mwikali and the last speaker on the questions of accountability. This is not the Moi regime. This is not Kibaki regime. This is not Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta's regime. This is a different regime under the new constitutional dispensation. And the fact that the young people within this country have gotten grace and decided to actually hold our government accountable, it is a win for everyone, because at the end of the day, this constitution has been in place for all that period, since 2010. There is nothing new that the Law Society is pushing that has not been actually, that is not contained in the Constitution. What we are pushing is to ensure that the Constitution is followed to the letter. And that is why every decision of government, every decision of ministries through executive orders, under the office of the president, through the cabinet secretaries, through the parastatals, that undermines the constitutional provisions in terms of what the law requires, has and will continue to be challenged by the Law Society of Kenya, because that is our duty under Section 4 of the Law Society of Kenya Act, that we have to hold our government accountable, we have to check it, we have to actually advise government. And in the previous sessions, we even spoke about the questions of what is the role of the Law Society before bills are presented before the National Assembly. If you bother to find out, you'll find that the Law Society always gives advisories in form of memorandums to the National Assembly on critical issues. And actually, the last memorandum that the Law Society gave was on the question of the finance bill that led to where we have found ourselves as a country. And do they, as the National Assembly, incorporate those views? And I think that's where we are. And of course, earlier on, we indicated that we have an olive branch based on the dismissal of the entire cabinet, with the exception of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, which position we have already challenged in court, that it's a non-existent position under the Constitution of Kenya 2010. There is no superior Cabinet Secretary amongst the individuals appointed under the Constitution, and therefore you cannot purport to create a position outside the Constitution of Kenya 2010. We have also indicated, and we continue to indicate, that we have challenged the task forces that are being created by the president through executive orders on the basis that they are extra-constitutional. They are not contained in our Constitution at all. We have the Office of the Auditor General to audit issues and questions of expenditures of government and government institutions, parastatals, ministries, and then you can count them. The Auditor General issues opinions every year. And as members of the public, you have to take the initiative to look into those opinions and perhaps initiate independent processes, because you have a right to approach court and say, look, this person was given 150 million under this county government to put this money on this purpose. Because expenditures, the reason why we budget before we budget, then we spend, it's for purpose of ensuring that if we budget for a certain amount of money as a country, then there is a requirement that that money should go for that purpose. And that's where Parliament has failed us. On the question of oversight, have you accounted for the monies we send in form of CDF to the respective members of Parliament across the country? No, they have not. With regard to the Senate, have you accounted the money sent to counties every year in terms of expenditure, recurrent expenditure, the necessary expenditures that are in place? You guys have seen our doctors demonstrate in the streets. The people who handle diseases in our country, the people we have given our individual rights to assess our conditions and give and advice and give treatment. But these hospitals in the villages don't have medicine. And considering that this is a devolved function, has the Senate initiated the processes of checking these individuals? I appreciate, and we had discussions previously as to the conduct of the Senate. And we established that indeed they have somehow attempted to oversight county governments. We have seen them impeach a number of governors, especially those governors who have involved themselves in corruption. But again, we still need to hold constitutional offices. We have the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, which has, in the recent past, initiated cases in court and then purport to withdraw them. And I think the DPP, as the public, the prosecutor of cases of this nature, has a duty not to withdraw such cases that involve corruption, because as the public looks at these bodies and expects them to hold these individuals we put into respective offices accountable. And we have to be very keen. I'm very happy that most of the speakers who have spoken on this session have raised concerns on the conduct of their respective representatives. We had conversations about Article 1 of the Constitution and the supremacy of the Constitution, and where our representatives draw their powers. They draw their powers from you, the people, we, the people. And we, the people, have a right to recall them. We, the people, have a right to question them. We, the people, have a right to give them views as to how we expect them to represent us. And we'll have an opportunity, because this conversation will continue until the next general election. We have issues to do with the IEBC and several other government entities. And we have an opportunity to vet individuals that we vote for. It's not enough to come on X Space and say, oh, my member of parliament is corrupt. And yet this member of parliament was elected within your constituency. We have to ensure that we are not going to vote for people who give us money in form of handouts. And this is popular in our village spaces, where a member of parliament uses the CDF money that you give them to bribe you. And we had a discussion earlier. Why will a member of parliament use the constituency development fund to bring tanks to a school in the village and brand the tanks that this is so and so's development, and you put your name in government resources? That is not your money. That is our taxpayers' money. We expect you to actually discharge your duties without advertising, because it's your duty to develop those schools. It's your duty to ensure that those kids in those schools within your constituency do not sit on a classroom that is leaking. But when you go forward and bring and actually, you know, have a washroom, and then you say this washroom was funded by so and so, yet we know that this money comes from the taxpayers' money, and that's why we said we need to have a conversation of to remove CDF and put it under the county governments, because county governments were devolved for purposes of ensuring that they develop these places. And we actually, devolution brought in uh, 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 an important aspect in our space to ensure that the people in the village, deep in the village, and that's why we have members of the county assemblies. And if we're not, whereas we are holding the national, the national parliament, the National Assembly in this discussion, and holding them responsible for the discussions that they bring into a parliament, their duties on oversight, their duties on legislation, and their duties to hold the executive accountable. We also need to hold the members of the county assemblies responsible for the functions given to them under the devolved government and under the current constitutional dispensation. And how do we do that? We have to participate in the discussions that they make. We have to know and understand how your representative voted on specific bills that affect your livelihood as members of the public. And I think this is very important because it will help you, it will help us as members of the public to be able to vet the individuals we put into office. Do not accept to vote for an MCA, because that is the lowest level in terms of our political structure, individuals we elect into county governments, then followed by members of parliament, women representatives, and all that. You have to scrutinize these people and live and actually find out whether they meet the provisions under the Constitution on leadership and integrity. If they have a matter right now, the Law Society is actually pursuing cases against a person who has been suspected to have raped someone and who has been appointed as the chair of a tea estate, tea authority somewhere. And these issues are in the public domain. And the reason why the Law Society took up such a matter is on the basis that, do these people meet the constitutional requirements on leadership and integrity? They do not. And we have to actually devolve these questions back into the village, find out who we are electing, what they are doing, and all that. The resources that are coming to our spaces, it's not a benefit. And I think the National Assembly is a sham, because the CDF, the Constitutional Development Fund, as it is, was declared unconstitutional. But again, because it benefits these individuals in their personal capacity, they will always fight to ensure that they have these resources to distribute. Yet we have a devolved unit that is supposed to actually cater for these issues. We have duplication of roles in terms of representation. We are actually overrepresented. And I think there are people who have raised issues about overrepresentation. Why do I need a women rep? Why do I need a member of parliament? Yet I have a governor, I have a MCA. Those are discussions that are actually are good in terms of looking into our constitution. You remember that for us to change anything under the Constitution of Kenya 2010, you must go to a referendum. The president has no powers. You remember the BBI issue that went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court gave directions that it's very difficult to actually amend the Constitution as it is, and that the president cannot initiate a proposal to amend the Constitution. It must come from you people. You have the right to initiate that process, go through the signature process, present this information before the IEBC. We know the IEBC is not properly constituted as currently placed, because I believe there are people who could have, as of this time, recalled their members of parliament on reasons that they went against the views of the people they purport to represent. We have to take these initiatives, encourage our members to take up to those young people who have not taken up identity cards. I indicated earlier and yesterday that we now have regulations that purport to say that an identity card should expire after 10 years. I don't know whether the members of the public know that. It is disheartening to know that someone sat down and said your citizenship must expire within 10 years. And we had the Miguna case. And I think if government was paying attention to the jurisprudence being developed within our courts, they would be in a better place to actually advise themselves to make decisions that are not unconstitutional. Because at the end of the day, anything that is in contravention of this constitution must always be challenged. And the law site has been doing that, for the longest time. So it's very important that you know, and we have challenged that decision to have our identity cards expire within 10 years. We have also challenged the decision to ask members of the public to pay to be identified as citizens. It is a duty of government to issue identity cards to the members of the public upon attainment of the age of 18 years. We are not supposed to pay anything. We were born in this space. This is our land. This is our land as Kenyan citizens. We should not feel as though we are aliens in a foreign land. This is where you were born. This is where you were raised up. This is where you went to school. This is where your kids will be born. This is where the future generations will be born. And the Constitution protects the people who have been born in this space and even the people who will be born in future on this space. And I think it's important that we appreciate that. We have we have had several questions that have been raised. I think we have several people who intend to speak. Can I kindly pass the microphone to Mao D? Mao D, I'm still trying to ensure that Dudley is back so that he can be able to have a microphone. But Mao, can you hear me? Kindly proceed.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the mic. I also wasn't aware that I could get the mic today, but I'm grateful. So I'll try and be as fast as possible. We are discussing a lot regarding the legal structure and the legal framework of what is happening around us, which is good because LSK has come out as one of the few professional bodies that is supporting the cause. And we'll tackle that towards the end of my points, asking where are the other bodies. But first of all, let us start from the recent events that have happened yesterday and today, the recovery of bodies in the Quarry. And we ask ourselves, why are these people nameless until today? How comes they can't be identified? Like you see someone like like Mike Moshiri gets abducted, he tweets, and in less than a day, he's already been freed because we all know him. But who are these 18 people who we do not know? Who are those people who died in 2007 that we don't know? Who are those people in Shakahola whose names we don't know? How comes there are citizens in Kenya who can die and be used as cannon fodder or as expendable political pawns, and we do not know their names? There's actually an image that I like very much, which is one of the most gruesome images that I've ever seen on the internet. And I think we have all seen it. It's a person lying on the pavement, his head is on the pavement, and there's a riot police officer with his boot raised, aiming for his head. And I always keep asking, what is the name of this gentleman? Because that violence happened years ago and no one has identified his name. The point I'm trying to raise is, if the police had gone and started shooting in Kilelesho or Kilimani, Jerotich Sei would be all over the internet and would be all over following her, asking about the rights of the people of Kenya. But because those people are in slums, no one knows them. They are expendable and no one cares about them. Right now, as we're having this space, like 2 hours ago, there was a video circulating of a man who was being dragged out of his house by police, and the public was recording. And they were telling the children of that man, go and cling to your father so that the police do not take him. And they were heckling, and not even heckling, they were shouting and raising an alarm and telling the police you cannot take him, he has done nothing. Now, that man, until now, we do not know his name. It's because he's an expendable slum dweller. What are we looking for here? We are looking for the systems that are supposed to work for all Kenyans. But the system that we have currently has separated us in an apartheid manner. The Kenyans who matter and Kenyans who do not matter. Now, on to the next point. The next point is that everyone is saying we need a system that works. But how will you have a system that works if you're not willing to change the system? Sorry to say, the legal framework and the academic structures that we have in this country make it so hard to change the system such that we are stuck to the system. I'll give you a very clean example. The system we have merges policy and politics together. They're inseparable. That is why we are saying the president can make declarations and they become policy. He can actually go and do things that are outside the law or inside the law, and they become policy. And that is what we need to separate. Let me give you a clear example. Sorry, I'll speak for a bit long because this mic is rare to get. Let me give you a clear example of how we cannot be relying on a bad system and hoping that the goodwill of the people who go there will help us. If you have a bank system does not rely on the goodwill of the employees. The bank system is designed to assume that everyone who works in that bank is a devil. No one is an angel. No one can come there and promise you and give you a manifesto and say, I will increase your profits and I will not steal anything. And then you trust him. If you lose 10 shillings in a bank today, in less than an hour, they'll have revamped that system to ensure they know where that 10 shillings got lost from, and that mistake never gets repeated again. But if you lose $400 million, like we have lost in 2023, the OAG will come and tell us money has been lost. And then we will leave the system there, remove all the employees, and then look for new employees who will give us new promises that are not legally binding, telling us that they will not steal any more money. What kind of system are we running where it is reliant on the goodwill of people? It is totally illogical. Now, if the other example that we usually give is that you cannot rely on the promises of people, even in Bible school, even in theological school, or in Islamic school. Those people are there studying the Holy Scriptures. They have made vows, and they are there to observe purity. But there is no religious school that has one dormitory for male and female students. Why? Because you cannot rely on the goodwill of people. You have to separate the genders because you know exactly what will happen if you mix them, regardless of the promises these people have given you. So if you cannot mix genders in theology school, how comes you can put politicians in the same bed with your taxes and expect that no rape will happen because the politician has told you he will not rape your taxes? It is totally illogical, the system that we have. Hata mkisema mara ngapi that our constitution is great, it is not great. It is one of the most nonsensical structures that we have. And this is how we are supposed to look into making a system that will work. This is the third point now. How do we ensure that the bogus constitution that we have and the bogus structures that we have are changed so that evil stops happening? You can't fire Murkomen today and then ask the same person who hired him to look for another person who will come and fill his position. It's nonsensical. Sorry to say, it's total nonsense. So this is how you make sure the systems work. The first thing you do is separate policy from politics, government from politicians. Because as you can hear, people are using government and to mean politicians in the entire conversation. So you hear someone saying, the government has arrested people, the government has issued propaganda, the government is issuing false numbers. That is not true. Those are the politicians. The difference between a government and politicians is this. The government is the structure, it is the machine. The politicians are the temporary operators of that machine. The government will stay there when the politicians leave. So let us change the structure of the machine to work for us. You can't tell us to be vigilant all the time because you have designed a machine that is full of loopholes. Right now, I've just made a cup of tea. I did not need to stand there and be vigilant on my microwave and see whether it will overheat my tea, because the microwave is designed to work in the way I want it to. After it reaches 2 minutes, 10 seconds, it stops and alerts me. So I do not have to be vigilant about the machinery in my house. It is the same way you're not supposed to be vigilant about the machine called government. It is not supposed to take your whole day looking at who is stealing what in which ministry, who is flying out with our money, where is it going. That is not your job as a citizen. You're supposed to be working to build the nation, not monitoring thieves. So first, separate government from politicians. Second thing, separate politics from policy. I know you've been taught in school that they're the same thing. They are not the same thing. Here's a clear example. How many people in Kenya vote? Even if you say it's 10 million, 40 million do not vote. Yet they must have good life. And that good life cannot be reliant on politics. It has to be reliant on policy. Basically, policy is what makes your life work. Whether you vote in an angel or a demon, policy is supposed to ensure you have clean water, you have clean food, you have clean air, you have good housing, you have good roads. That is not politics. In fact, the politician is supposed to come in and go out and not affect policy at all. Policy is not reliant on a politician. A clear example I can give you before I move to the next point is Ruto is not supposed to be telling you that he has allowed 25 stories to be built in Isili. That is not his job. He's not an urban planner, he's not an architect, he's not an engineer. So what grounds does he have as a politician to tell you that Isili can go to 25 stories? That should be the work of the built professionals. They come, they sit down, they tell you this is the policy that we have revised, and we have put these structures in place. We have changed the city to accommodate 25 stories. Now you can build 25 stories. But Ruto and Charles Hinga standing there and telling you you can build 25 stories, they have not changed the city, and they do not even have a single clue about how our city works. Hinga is an accountant, Ruto is a botanist, and both of them are clueless politicians. So on to my next point, and I think it's going to be my second last point. How do we change this structure so that it accommodates everyone and it doesn't leave out anyone like in the slums or wherever, and it has policies that work for us 24/7 regardless of the politicians? We have to make sure policy is headed by 5 categories of people who are interchangeable, but 5 categories. The first category is what the Constitution calls the people who have sovereign power in this country. The people are the ones who say what policy they need. They sit down, they say, we need clean water here, we need farming land here, we need this forest preserved, we need these roads built. So the people are the ones who come up with the brief of the policy. They can either represent this brief directly, as said in Article 1, or they can have representatives. Because they can have representatives, Group 1 of the people elects Group 2 of the politicians. Now the politicians collect the brief of the people. They go and say, the people have said this, design policy to answer these questions. And then also when the policy is designed, they go back to the people and ask them, is the design you have been given working for you? Yes or no? What would you like changed? So they also represent the feedback of the people. And they do oversight to ensure the policy that is designed is working properly within budget and within timeframes and within legal structures. So politicians hatuja change role yao. It's the same thing. Representation, oversight, and legislature. But legislature is what we are touching. Then the third group is academia. Academia, sorry to say, are glorified data collectors. So that is their job. Go out there, listen to what the people are saying, listen to what the politicians are saying, get the data. Because academia can only look at the present and the past. It can't see the future. And policy works in the future. So academia's job is to look at the present and say the systems are like this right now. and look at the past and say the systems were like this in the past. Here is the data showing that this is what is happening on the ground. So you have the brief from the people and the data from academia. It is given to the fourth group, the professionals. The professionals now sit down and say, this is what the people want. This is what the data is saying. These are the available resources. This is the available time. What can we do to make sure as many needs are met within the available resources and time, and in the most effective and efficient way? That is the professionals now. And anytime they design a policy, it goes back to the people and the politicians to gauge the efficacy of what they have designed. Then also the other role that the professionals play, group 4, is supervising group 5, the executive. Because the executive has to implement what has been designed. I can give you a very simple example. When architects design a building, they are not the ones who build it. They design the building according to what the client has said he wants, and according to the resources the client has, and the time the building is supposed to take, and also the legal framework that allows that building to be there. Then the contractor now, who is the executive, comes and does this building under the supervision of the architect and the other professionals. So the professional here, the policy maker, is the architect of all these things and is answerable. If you make a bad policy, you get jailed. Now the executive group 5 is executing this policy, it's implementing this policy, and it is under the supervision of the professionals, which means money is not being touched by group 1 to group 3. It's only circulating between group 3 and group 4. And that is where money gets stolen right now in the current nonsensical structures that we have. It is stolen through private sector entrepreneurship. There's no money that is stolen by public sector. Stolen money always moves from public coffers into private sector pockets, never vice versa, never ever. So we are going to seal where the money is getting stolen from. And how do we still seal that? By group 5 executive being the NYS. NYS answers all the tenders that government has. If you want food supplied to any school, NYS grows it, processes it, packs it, supplies it. If you want uniforms done, NYS does that. If you want transport done, a minister moved from one place to another, NYS does that. If NYS cannot meet any of those things, it does procurement, direct, government to government. If you want oil, NYS cannot produce oil, it goes and talks to Libya or whoever gets this thing direct. No private sector entrepreneurs anywhere. So once you do that, you kill all the entrepreneurship and you kill all the theft. So those are the 5 groups. Now I go on to my last point. My last point is I thank LSK for being there for us. They're actually handling the legal part of this revolution very well, and I thank you for that. But I ask, where are the other professional bodies? Because you have said group 4 is professional bodies, not professionals. You are saying professional bodies. Be very, please be aware of the difference between a professional body and a body of professionals. A professional body is LSK. A body of professionals is a few professionals in a group. LSK has the power, or rather, the professional body should have the power to deregister errant professionals. And it works on a rotational basis, not an elective basis. That's a whole other argument I can clarify later. But we are on this last point. Where are the other bodies? LSK is here. Where is the Architectural Association of Kenya? I'll tell you where it is. It is in bed with Charles Hinga. They're the ones who are doing housing levy. They're the ones who are doing the affordable housing haste. They're the ones who are doing every renovation that is eating our money. That is where Architectural Association of Kenya is. That is why they are not talking. And they're also the ones, together with the quantity surveyors, they have a person sitting in the Public Procurement's Administrative Review Board. What does that mean? That everything that has been stolen, this guy is aware of. And the review that is done on the stolen stuff, this guy is aware of. And is part of AAK, and AAK is silent. Where are the planners? Where is KIP and where is TISPAC? Where are the planning bodies? They're the ones who are in bed with government doing all the land grabs and all the land hastes. Affordable housing is one of the biggest land hastes. They're the ones who are in charge of that. They're the ones who are doing special planning zones for Akina Konza City, Akina Tatu City, Akina Tilisi. They're the ones who are grabbing land and giving it to foreigners to start conservancies. That is why they are silent and LSK is speaking. Where is IEK and EBK? Where are the engineers? They're the ones who are eating Aurora and Kimwarer Dam. They're the ones who are eating the stadium hastes. They're the ones who are eating the power hastes, such that we don't have sustainable power. We are being supplied by APPs. They're the ones who are eating the money that is supposed to go to giving every Kenyan clean water. Infrastructure, it is them that they're eating. They're the ones who have eaten SGR. They have eaten Expressway. They have eaten BRT, bus rapid transport. So they are there, they are eating and they cannot talk when LSK is talking. ISPAC the same, the certified public accountants. So where are all these bodies? That is what I want to ask. If you're supposed to form group 4, where the professionals are making policy, we need to occupy these bodies, bring them to sense, do forensic audit, arrest all who have been implicated, put them under the force of the law, clean it up, and form these professional bodies that will drive policy and do project management over the implementation of policy. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mao, for those contributions. And I think you've raised substantive issues about professional bodies. As the Law Society of Kenya, we will not relent in holding government accountable. It has been done. We are not the first persons to actually do this. It has been an ongoing process from the previous regimes to where we are today. And it's important that you have put perspectives into the current professional bodies. What is it they are doing to protect their members? And remember, while protecting the Constitution, they also protect their members. Because at the end of the day, it's a collective duty. And they usually say that professional bodies have a duty because they don't speak as laymen. They speak from a point of information. They already know what the law provides for. These are people who are schooled. They have gone through classes. They know what is supposed to be done. I implore upon you to call upon your professional bodies, because we cannot pursue your professional bodies to say something. It is you as professionals within that space to call your members out, to call your leaders out and tell them, please come out and protect our rights. I appreciate the position that the KMPDU has taken. I appreciate the role they have played within this space, because they provided services at every juncture, at every level, in terms of attending to people who are injured during these demonstrations. They have actually been at the forefront of these demonstrations, and that I think we give credit to them and the leadership. We expect to have this from the different professions within the country to take up a position. And it's important because it does not, if you take up a position on behalf of your members, it's important that the members of the public should know, and including the members of your organization, that you have taken this position, and that position should actually be a position protecting the Constitution of Kenya. Because what we are fighting for job opportunities. We are fighting for space in terms of conversations on this space. We are fighting for young people to take up responsibilities within the public space. You all know that actually a majority of of the young people are now within the ages of 18 and 35. And they have the skills. They have been trained through the the educational system within the country to take up responsibilities, and these are competent people. And so what the Law Society is doing is to fight for these professionals. When we say that we have to have substantive and procedural processes in terms of appointment to public office being followed, including competence issues, ensuring that the people we appoint to these offices are not actually being presented because of the tribe where they come from and stuff like that, we speak for everyone. Remember, we have concerns in the agriculture sector alone. We have people saying there are GMOs being introduced into the agriculture sector. Do we have professionals within that space who are speaking on these issues? We have medical issues. We have treatments. We have medications that are within our space. Do we have medical doctors speaking to these issues? We have different sectors of this economy, including construction. And I think, Mao, you have mentioned about this issue on these issues, and you have illuminated some of the issues that we had not discussed about. As professionals within your space, we have journalists, and I think the media has played its role as the as an institution to actually expose what is happening within the streets, expose the injustices, expose what is happening in government, and they have actually been deliberate in their efforts to ensure that actually the members of the public understand their role and at the same time appreciate what is happening in the street so that they can be able to make their positions clear. The members of the public can be able to make their positions clear. Before I allow the next speaker, I think someone raised issues about Shakahola and the prosecutions therein. You need to appreciate the fact that this is a continuous process that is continuing in that region. We have a representative of the Law Society following up on the murders within the Shakahola space. We have reports, and we continue to follow up on as to what decisions the High Court makes. We will continue to ensure that the individuals being named, who are named within this space, will take responsibility for those deaths. Religion is no longer an issue within our space. And it's very important to understand what religion has done to our parents, our former parents, our grandfathers. Religion has been an opium for the masses. And I like the fact that Gen Zs are now saying, look, we do not want you to tell us what is religious, because religion is in the heart. And those constitutional and theologists studied religion, they will tell you that religion is in the heart. The church is in your heart. And we have to actually ensure that we're not duped from our churches. We are not duped by our religious leaders to understand, to ignore, and continue suffering. I don't know where the church is when you see those bodies being taken out from that quarry. I don't know where the church is when young people are found abandoned and killed in those places. We have to call out these religious leaders who are in bed with government. And government should know, why is it that it's our parents, our grandfathers, who worship in these churches, and the young people don't want to participate in these churches because they know the truth. They know that religion, as currently constituted, does not agitate for human rights, does not fight for the right to speech, does not fight for the right to the freedoms and the fundamental freedoms under the Constitution. And so they know what the Constitution talks about. And whereas there is freedom of religion under the new Constitution of Kenya 2010, People have grown and continued to study and find out that religion is not the solution to the problems, because we have people die every day. Gen Zs have already said we do not want politicians on the pulpits, on church pulpits. The church should actually take its position. And I think the church has a responsibility to hold government institutions accountable on their conduct, hold leaders responsible in their conduct. There are allegations that have been made that the church has been used previously to, process monies, proceeds of crime, where someone donates 20 million in cash, that money is processed back to companies and it comes back to the same politicians. The pulpit has been desecrated. Actually, it has been used against what it was supposed to be meant for. And that's why the Gen Z are saying we are not willing to participate in a religious process and allow a politician to speak from that pulpit going forward. We hold and continue to hold the Director of Public Prosecution accountable with the Shakahola killings. We hope that there will be convictions for the people accused to have murdered people on the basis of religion. And we will continue to hold for, I believe, all the civil societies and the Law Society of Kenya is actually following up closely and finding out as to how the court will determine the questions of liability in court as we continue going forward. I don't know whether Rosemary, are you there? If you kindly can proceed, and then we have Fadil. Rosemary?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much, Wakili Manwa. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can. Kindly proceed.
Okay. Mimi nilikuwa tu, first, of course, I really want to thank you for giving me the space, the mic to speak, and to thank you and Wakili, Faith, and yourself for putting together this space. Some of us have been here on the spaces a little bit longer. I was very active on the space during the campaign election time. And I do remember having talked to a lot of youth. Hawa our Generation Z ambao wanakwenda kwenye street, and picketing, which of course they have every right according to the Constitution of Kenya. A lot of them, when I urged them and encouraged them to vote, waliniambia auntie, hiyo hatutakwenda. That is a holiday, ni siku ya kuchukua blanketi na kujifunika, and hatutakwenda huko. Now, standing on the fence, here we are. Now, I know this may sound bitter and difficult and say, I told you so. Mlikwenda, mlisimama kwenye fence, and these are the results that we have on us as of today. A lot of speakers previously have brought up really, really, really very good points. My heart goes out on what is happening in the country. I'm not in the country myself. I live in the US. And what is happening in Mukuru, some of those bodies are being drained out of that quarry and what have you. It's just heart-wrenching, so sad. Bado hata we've not recovered from Denzel's body being recovered from the quarry, and we are now seeing all these body parts as zimekatwa na nini. And then you see some of these pronouncements from our politicians. Kuna huyu baba mmoja, I can't remember his name, sijui anaitwa Zahir ama kitu kama hicho, anatoka Kisii. He's an MP. He issued a statement, I think it's on his handle, akawa anasema, are we sure those bodies did not come from the mortuary, wakenda wakatupwa huko? Really, when a leader makes a pronouncement like that, where is NCIC? Ama all these instruments and organizations and associations and forums that we have well put together and are not doing their work? They are asleep. Na wanakula allowances na nini. So my heart goes out when statements like those are said. People should be, really take him down on that. Sio kumsalimia, I don't look for violence. Lakini really, either to just not follow them, some of these people. In fact, nataka kuomba hata with the audience here, at one point, we were almost about 10,000. Follow chairman wetu wa LSK and yourself. Wewe utoke kwenye hiyo 5K, at least uingie 1 million. Because why am I saying that? To get a huge following? You can always post things and you have a large audience ambao you can also influence. Na ukiwa kwenye public space, unatupatia mawaidha. You give us some of those anecdotes and information and guidance that you so eloquently put together. Of course, your speech, I know it's your co-hosting. It was a bit too long. So ungeifanya mkato hata kina Mao Deo, who is a good friend of mine, amezungumza kwa muda mrefu. For myself as a broadcaster or former broadcaster, I will not take a lot of time, but I'll just say I'll take probably another 2 minutes and say this, or a minute or so. Kusema, there are 3 things that are ailing us. I mean, of course, our children, our generations, sisi tuna watoto hiyo miaka, wamekwenda kwenye street, wametuonyesha how it is done through the social media and on the streets. And I just hope that LSK will continue doing what they are doing to protect them. All these abductions, I think our families, we need to action to call. Lazima ucheck watoto wako nyumbani, wamefika nyumbani kama wamekwenda picketing, because some of these reports we are not getting, bodies are being found. Yule mama, and we've seen it on WhatsApp and on the social media, yule mama ambaye alikuwa anatafuta mjukuu wake anaitwa Ishmael kutoka Githurai. And also I think in the county assembly where Dada Faith, Wakili Faith was there, I just remember the mama ambaye alikuwa anauliza mtoto wake Kamau. And the reason I'm also mentioning Ishmael and Kamau, it is important. These are our children, our grandchildren. It is important that we mention their names. They have not gone in vain, and we shall not forget them. Justice must be found. They have been on a lot of these spaces, na niliona hata I think it was Wakili Willis akisema hata cases za kina Msando, hata cases za kina Baby Pendo, all these things are going to come up. Yes, the IG has resigned, but is that the end? So I do not want to belabor the point that may have been covered earlier by colleagues here. These things are being recorded, and one can take time and even go and listen. And I usually do that. I mean, when I try to find time to listen to some of these statements that have been said. Na zile statements mzuri, mimi nachukua, and I take it, I amplify them. 3 areas. Unaona, the reason our children went to the street is because of the finance bill 2024. And of course, what has happened, I'm not going to repeat that. And I just hope that that law is not enacted in whatever form. But of course, there's been threats kwa vile finance bill 2024 haikwenda through. Now we are going to borrow $1 trillion. Now, this area is not going to get this support. This area is not going to get support. Are those the pronouncements that should be coming from our leaders? Mimi siku zote huwa na quote President Obama. I mean, for purposes of this discussion, yeye in the first term alichaguliwa with only 56%. Na ile maji nyingine that never elected him, in his first statement, alisema he thanked the 56% that elected him. Na akasema those who did not elect him, he is going to work day and night to bring them on board and see what he can deliver. These are the sort of things that we expect from our leaders. Sio kwenda, they get into office and they start vomiting on our shoes. Hiyo largesse and opulence that has been, talked about, we've seen it. And it's there. I mean, it is just totally unacceptable. As I go to the 3 areas that I know are really ailing us, other than the finance bill, kuna hiyo mambo ya just the economic times, really hard. Unakwenda with the 10,000 Kenya shillings kwenye supermarket. Some of the items you come out with, honestly, ni kama vitu viwili vitatu ama at most, very few things. People are barely surviving. I mean, living in Kenya now, I don't know, ni kama ambaye unakaa Switzerland, uko Zurich or something like that, if you have to compare to other places. But those other places, kuna minimum wage ambao watu wanalipwa. And then the second problem, unapata some of our young people, some of those kids, some of our children who are going on the streets are graduates. Na hata if you are not a graduate, wewe ni mtu wa jua kali, unajua kupolish viatu vizuri ama mambo ya mjengo, you want a job. People do not want handouts, but they want to be dignified and getting a job. At my age, I can tell you, and some of you who are young may not even remember that, when people are leaving university, wakitoka, kuna kazi na wangojea East African Industries. Wewe kama ni DO unakuwa posted somewhere. These days, that doesn't happen. So those are the two really, I believe, that things that LSK can take up, and also LSK can be the watchdog in terms of pulling some of those professional job associations and forums that Mao Day are referred to. Where are they? They should stand to be counted. So nikimalizia, what I would like to say ni kwamba all of us here are hurting, and irrespective of where we live, hata kama unaishi majuu ama Marekani ama wherever it is, we are also supporting our families. So we know exactly how much those things are. So at the end of the day, mimi nataka kuomba kuwa, the question I have for you Akili ni kwamba, where do we go from here? Vijana wamefanya kazi yao, wamesema no dialogue, hawataki hiyo, so hatutawalazimisha with dialogue, but where do we go from here? What are some of the low hanging fruit right now? Hatuna cabinet, it was dissolved. Lakini ma PSS bado wako. Where do we go from here? You know, I do not want to belabor the point, but I believe one of the things that I've said as a parting shot as I land, ni kwamba, when you go through all these spaces ambao kuna watu wengi, the other day ile ya Miguna, it had almost about 1 million and other places, which is good. But are we harnessing, are we putting together this material? There are experts among us who can actually store this data. Manake, this information is very important for somebody, some interns, some JPOs can go through and sieve through and look at priorities in terms of what can be handled almost immediately. Thank you very much. Na nawashukuru sana for giving me the mic. Truly appreciate, lakini pia naomba watu wasizungumze for so long mpaka tu unasahau alianzia wapi na amemalizia wapi. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary. We can keep it 2 minutes each of us for those of you who have the mic, so that we ensure that we collect as many views as possible. I have Isaac. Isaac, if you have the microphone, kindly proceed. Isaac, are you there? If Isaac is not there, Elijah. Elijah Sang.
And Wakili Manwa, what I'm going to do, I'm going to drop so that nafasi yangu inachukuliwa na mtu mwingine. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rosemary. Thank you. We appreciate.
Yes, my name is
Elijah, you can proceed. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for giving me this chance. Currently I'm in Somalia. I've worked in Iraq and I've worked in Afghanistan. So my only point which I want to express is peace. Because one time, I must say I was a soldier. And if I was a soldier, when you people bash somebody called a soldier, it feels bad that these people are also human beings. We're happy of the democracy that is going on in Kenya right now. It is giving us light. It is giving us even a name where we are. But my problem is, are these soldiers our brothers, sisters, or relatives, to an extent that we bash and we abuse in such a way? All of us were on social media and we were watching what is going on. And I tend to ask myself if, as lawyers, you are biased. Because humanity means to protect all people. Soldiers are human beings. Though they are in government, though you can say they're in government, but they are human beings. Before I went to let's say military, I was in university and I studied. And what happened is the training that soldiers get is not the same when he gets in and when he gets out. So let us get some talks that cannot ignite some egos that can damage our country. I've heard somebody in Norway talking about having a demonstration, maandamano in Kenya. If we need to follow law, and we need to follow what Constitution says, maandamano is accepted in Kenya, is in law, and it is meant to be licensed that you start from somewhere to somewhere, and from this time to this time. It should be peaceful. So it's like I'm also thinking about that lady whose shoe rack was burnt, and she had to go and repair it for 40,000 or to 60,000. Who is representing this lady? There is a lady who dropped from second floor, the ground, and he broke her leg. Who is representing this lady? So there's also that person who lost up to 14 million business. Who is representing that guy? So my problem is, let's forge a way forward for a country. Let's not damage the country the way it is. I yearn for peace. Where we are is not peaceful at all. And if at all some of you can be taken around to these countries like Somalia, you will cry. You will cry and ask yourself, is Kenya peaceful? When you go to places like Iraq, people are not safe. And I must say like this, as a trained person, let's learn to do a civic duty by educating our people how to demonstrate. Because I have a gun with a bullet, and you're throwing to me a stone. And those two people are Kenyans. One has a stone, one has a gun. So my point is, let's love our country. Those who are in America, educate us how we can do maandamano, peaceful maandamano. And one time I will try to go to court and be represented by maybe Faith Odhiambo. That how can a soldier or a police be protected? Does he has any right, or does she has any right? That person who has destroyed, who has his whole properties gone, does he or she has right? That's my point. Otherwise, I'm pleased to be here, and I will continue listening to you people, and let's have peace in our country. Those other people don't enjoy what you guys enjoy in Kenya. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elijah, for your contribution. I think I first want to appreciate the fact that you're one of the men and women, one of the men this country has sent out to protect the sovereignty of this state. We haven't had a soldier speak on this forum, but it's important to know that as the Law Society, we have been at the forefront fighting for the reforms within the police space, within the security space.